the solution. Take those mental shackles off and throw them away. You gotta get them out of your mind. Don't you let division lead you blind. Moving steady now. It's a revelation. Thoughts no longer focus. Hands and taken away. Now you're breaking away. They may think they know you, but it's an education.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Drag Discussions. I see there are two of you in here right now, so hello. Welcome to the third episode of Drag Discussions with my weekly guest, new one each week on Sundays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We are here with Spank Knightley. Hi, Spank. How are you?
Hello, I am doing very well. I'm ready to do this.
Say that one more time.
I have a glass of wine. I'm ready to do this. I'm doing very well.
Hell yeah. I love to hear that. I love glasses of wine and classy conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were talking a little bit before we started the stream about family, and I think that's probably a pretty good place to start, because I feel like my experiences, like with the Jehovah's Witnesses are, since I've left that behind, it is a lot about family. Like, a lot of my family is still involved. Yeah. So how does that, how's your relationship with, like, those members of your family who still are in with the church and such?
Well, it's interesting because it's my mom's side that is Mormon, right?
Yeah.
But she married my dad, who is kind of atheist, agnostic, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And with a lot, it's not unheard of. It's just uncommon for Mormons to marry non-Mormons, because it's usually expected for you to get married in the temple, and in order to do that, you have to be Mormon.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, see, I feel like a lot of, would we call them unorthodox? I don't really know what the definition of an orthodox versus a non-orthodox religion is, but non-conventional, I'll use that word, non-conventional faiths, I feel like always have that, where they're like, you gotta marry in the faith, because same thing with Jehovah's Witnesses, if you marry somebody outside of, who isn't a Jehovah's Witness, you get disfellowshipped like that.
Mm-hmm.
As well as, premarital sex. Go ahead.
But yeah, my mom's side is Mormon, or at least mostly from the, because she's from Idaho, and so that southern Idaho, North Utah area is very heavily concentrated with the LDS Church.
What does Latter-day mean? What does Latter-day mean?
Latter-day means the last days.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So, of course, it's been the last days since the 1830s. So,
when are those days gonna end?
Come on.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Get it over with already.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this for how many years now?
Oh god. No, latter days just means the last days. I did not grow up in Utah specifically.
Okay.
So I never grew up in the motherland, so to speak.
The motherland.
Yeah. But, so I always grew up in Illinois, which has, a sizable, like most places, it has a sizable amount of Mormons, because there's a lot of history here.
Yeah.
Because, what was it, I'm summarizing here, but they're from, Ohio to Illinois to Missouri, then back to Illinois, then to Utah.
Yeah. So what is, is there significance behind Utah and Illinois?
So, Utah was essentially the place where Brigham Young, who at the time was the prophet for the LDS Church, he decided that was the place that they were going to, settle.
Oh.
Of course. Yeah, and with Illinois, it was more like they were living in Nauvoo and practicing their religion at the time, and then they were chased out because Mormons and also just Joseph Smith being a dickhead. So essentially, and then there was also a split up after Joseph Smith was killed, because it was there's also the Reformed LDS Church, which I think they go by a different name now. I think they go by like Church of Christ or something. Anyway, so there's another branch of Mormon, essentially, that's different from the one that I practiced.
And that was, you were raised in that?
Yeah, I was raised in the main one, the LDS Church, yeah.
Okay. And that's, now I want to ask this question because I am ignorant on a lot of other, religions. Like, I studied with the Hare Krishnas for a year. That's the only other faith that I know anything about besides, just your typical Christianity, like the mega churches and stuff that I got dragged along to with my friends, and the Kingdom Halls. So, who is Joseph Smith?
Joseph Smith was essentially a guy. So, like, preface here, I'm not like the most knowledgeable, even in my own religion.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some like Sunday school stuff, but it was mostly with like really small children, and it was like very basic things. But essentially, Joseph Smith was the founder of the LDS Church. He basically said that God gave him a book. I mean, if you've seen the Book of Mormon musical, then you know the story.
I have not.
You know the story.
I have not, but my boyfriend is obsessed.
So he starts this church during a time where a lot of people were starting up churches. This was the manifest destiny era,
Yeah.
So a lot of white Anglo-Saxon religions starting up in the U.S. By being called of God. And he claimed that God came to him when he was 14 in a garden. And it wasn't just God, it was God and I believe Jesus Christ.
Oh, Lord.
And there was a third one there. Not the Holy Ghost. But there was another guy there.
Some other dude.
It's probably like Moroni or so. Well, I'll get into that later. So, he basically told him, to be righteous, start the church.
Do you think he was on drugs?
I'm paraphrasing, and also I'm just a little bit tipsy, so like,
Felt.
bear with me here. So, later on, he claims he gets visions from the angel Moroni, who told him to dig up these golden plates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then translate them, which, by the way, he has like a 5th grade reading level, comparatively. So, like...
Basically, he wrote down whatever the fuck he wanted.
Basically. No. He had... and that became the Book of Mormon, right?
Yeah.
And that was just him telling stories that were vaguely similar to the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's how that came to be. There's a lot of details that go into that and what stories are in the Book of Mormon. It's going to take an entire...
Yeah, that's not... Yeah. No, I feel that.
Vodka for that, because, and maybe a joint.
Yeah, you see what I find really interesting is that I might be speaking out of turn, I don't know, but I feel like in most Christian religions, or even like Catholic, well, actually I don't know about Catholicism, but the typical Christian I see, like around Easter time, you see all these signs in people's yards that say he has risen, or Jesus is Lord, stuff like that. I feel like a lot of Christians believe that Jesus is God or view Jesus as God. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way that I'm interpreting it.
So a lot of Christians do believe that like God is also Jesus, who is also like they're three beings in one, essentially, right?
Yeah.
While I don't know if there are a whole lot of other Christianities that do this. I mainly know that first part because I went to Catholic school as well. Imagine that.
Oh.
And so Mormons believe that they are three separate beings, or at least the Holy Spirit being more of like a. I don't even know how to describe how they view the Holy Spirit, but it's a completely different concept than God and Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Because God is. Oh, we're gonna have to delve a little bit of Mormon mythology and dogma here.
I'm ready.
Because essentially we all existed. The concept is we all existed as sons and daughters of God before the earth was like finalized and made, right?
Yeah. So
we existed before all that.
It's a very creationist point of view.
Yeah. And so and among those sons, his firstborn son is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And one of his other sons is Lucifer.
Woo!
My boy!
My boy Satan, what's up?
No, and so then essentially we're in the position of what most Christianities would think of as angels, right?
Yeah.
Mormons don't really believe in angels so much as they're saints, or they are beings that don't quite have a body until they come to Earth.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So
they're energy.
That's what the concept is.
They're just manifestations of energy.
Yeah. And essentially, God gathered everyone up and said, okay, so here's my plan. You're all going to come to Earth so that you can have a body.
Yeah.
And I need somebody to, and I need people to come to heaven later. It's a very vague plan, but, you know, I'm workshopping it here.
God's like, we're just playing it by ear.
And my boy Lucifer came in and was like, here I am, Lord, send me so that I can have everyone go to heaven and reap all the glory. I think that last part was kind of exaggerated because he really just wanted to bring everyone to heaven, because why the hell not?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't everyone live in heaven?
Yeah.
And then God was like, I don't know. And then Jesus said, thy will be done. And God was like, this guy's the guy who's going to save everyone.
This guy knows what's up.
My boy.
My boy.
And Lucifer was like, wow, that's kind of bullshit. You know, and of course this concept is disguised as, oh, he didn't want free agency, but you know what, that's the bullshit of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he takes like 1/3 of the angels, and they're doomed to, they rebel, and they're doomed to never have a physical body.
Damn.
And the real fucked up part, that is often revised in more modern interpretations of Mormon dogma, is that the amount of people who decided that they weren't going to choose a side in this battle, were cursed with dark skin.
Wow.
That's the racist bit of it.
Wow, I had
there's
no
a lot
idea.
Of bits, but that's where it starts, you know.
Wow, I had no idea about that part till you said something. That's crazy. I had never heard that before. So
now, like I said, a lot of a lot of Mormons will either confirm or deny that. It depends on what church you went to, what ward you went to, because some people have a different revisioned interpretation.
They're cherry pickers. They're cherry pickers,
which doesn't include that, but that's the original concept.
That sounds very cherry picky. Like, you know, that sounds like
Absolutely it is.
Yeah, that does remind me a lot of, you know, that's why I've noticed listening to you talk about some of the exposition, I guess, to the LDS Church. It's interesting because the reason that I specifically brought up the you know, people, I say mistaking because that's how I was raised, but mistaking Jesus for God is because so, like, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and, you know that when you grow up in a faith, you think that that's the truth until you get old enough to realize, wait a second, wait, something doesn't add up because, you know, as children, especially, you know, not boomers, I guess are you Generation X or like, are you Generation X?
I am a millennial.
Oh, you're a millennial. Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe Gen Z.
I was born in '94, so.
Oh, okay. So I think I'm Gen Z. That's what I meant. Gen Z. Okay, whatever. Regardless, doesn't matter. But I find that, you know, that sort of self-awareness comes a little bit quicker for us who, you know, millennials on forward, where it's like we're in this completely new society, you know, where people are either, you know, they're either Christian or they're not, it seems like nowadays. But
yeah.
What's really interesting I found is that, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses are very gung-ho, like super gung-ho on the fact that Jesus is not God. Like, they do not there is no reading between the lines there. That is very black and white. Jesus is not God. And something that I think is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say, like, stupid, but it is stupid. But I guess not really important, like not a superficial, that's the word I'm looking for. The superficial belief is that they believe that Jesus wasn't hung on the cross, he was hung on a pole. You know, like his wrists nailed up together and his feet nailed down below, like no cross. So are there any, like, it's weird, it's really weird, but I'm wondering if there are any, like, little including, you know, like the fucking racist, you know, dark skin people are, you know, not believers or something, cursed with dark skin. That's what you said, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, pertaining to Jesus, I mean, there's a lot of things because we have a separate book. I mean, we read the Bible. The Mormons also read the Bible because they believe the Bible to also be the Word of God as far as it's translated correctly. But they also have the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants set. So
what is the Book of Mormon versus the Bible?
Book of Mormon is what they claim to be another testament of Jesus Christ. That's the bit that was written by Joseph Smith. That's just a whole bunch of stories that are essentially, if I whittle it down, it's ancient. I'm laughing about it. Essentially, ancient Jewish people sailing across to the American continent.
Okay.
Like 600 years BC.
Wow.
And yeah, and
that's interesting.
No, and so that's essentially what makes it different. So the Book of Mormon is set on the American continent. Right.
Yeah.
This is what makes Mormonism like very, very American religion. You know, because
no shit.
They are so much that the Garden of Eden is believed to be somewhere in Independence, Missouri. I know.
What is with all the whitewashing and all these, like, religions outside of just traditional, you know, Christianity that originated God knows how many years ago? Like, what's with all the, you know?
Absolutely, it is some. I've never seen this amount of Olympic level, like,
just racism, like inherent racism. God. Literally, as the discussion goes, literally God.
You know, when you to believe in it at first. Most of these people are children when they learn about this, right? So, like, I don't want to say it's dumb that they ever believed it, because gaslighting goes a long way.
Yeah.
Right? That's, it's, and to say it's just dumb and people being stupid would be to dismiss how far abuse and gaslighting can go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a very poignant topic.
In hindsight, when I look back at it, I do say, wow, that was fucking ridiculous.
Right. I am the same exact way. So in terms of like celebrations, I want to, before I kind of delve a little bit into that part of, being a Jehovah's Witness, I'm curious as to do Mormons recognize pagan holidays like Christmas and every freaking holiday, basically Halloween and stuff? Do they recognize those?
Yeah.
Do y'all celebrate them?
So they recognize all the holidays that, like, most Christian holidays will celebrate that have pagan startups. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I didn't know that about Jehovah's Witnesses, because I would often get mistaken for Jehovah's Witness by friends, because I'd be like, oh yeah, this Christmas we're gonna, oh wait, I thought you didn't celebrate Christmas, and I'm like, no, that's Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yep. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it. See, being trans, I obviously would, have to go to we don't call them churches. I never grew up hearing or using the word church. That wasn't a thing to me. They're called kingdom halls and meetings, not like church services. They're called meetings. It's very interesting in that, when I tell people that was how I was raised, they often they are the ones who are shocked by that, because, and I've gone, preceding, my parents getting divorced and my mom leaving the faith, or at least dissociating from it, and kind of just letting me do my own thing. I, had gone with some friends to their, they all went to mega churches, so I've been in my, fair share of those environments a little bit at a time, and every single time, I'd walk in and, like, in their little kids area, they had, just teens gathered playing fucking Guitar Hero. And, like, there was no Bible reading, there was no scriptures, there was nothing. They were just chilling out like a fucking college party almost. And I remember going to the first one and just being like, what the fuck is this? Because Jehovah's Witnesses, it is a very formal affair. It is an extremely formal affair, going to services and meetings on, like, Wednesdays is usually when we would go, Wednesdays and sometimes Sundays, but Sunday wasn't even necessarily, like, God's day of rest. It wasn't, we didn't really recognize it as that so much as it was just those were the days that we went to the meetings. And I find it interesting being a trans person too, who grew up in this religion, because my mother would always dress me up, in these little frilly dresses and skirts, and
the tulle dresses were the worst.
Yes, the tulle dresses. Oh god. And she would put me in these fucking ballerina socks that were so itchy, and they had tulle on the top of them, and I would throw a goddamn fit every time she tried to put them on me. It was horrible. But, like, no, I was looking around at everybody, wearing just, like, jeans and a t-shirt, and I was like, where are we? Like, are we in the right place? They would probably spend all of 10 minutes reading a scripture. Like, that's pretty much it. And then they were like, all right, free for all. Y'all go play Guitar Hero and dick around, pretty much. They had food and live bands and music, singing, like, some Casting Crowns shit. And I just remember being in that audience just being so uncomfortable, just because it was nothing like I had ever experienced before, and I just did not know what the fuck to think, because my experience... Yeah, okay, cool. So it's like yes, I'm glad that somebody else understands. My experience was, we would go to the meetings and sit there for at least 2 hours. Each meeting was at least 2 hours long, and basically you go in and they have pews, like we have pews, And the pews are just pretty traditional. They look just like church pews, and we would all have our literature and our books and stuff, and we would stand up and sing these hymns and shit. And it was kind of like, it reminded me now, being an adult and looking back, having had some college experiences, in lecture halls, it was very much a lecture. It was a weekly, bi-weekly lecture in which every single time some old-ass, cis-het white man would be standing up at the microphone talking to you like Jake from State Farm, like just dead tone, just absolutely impersonal, but you could tell that he believed everything he was saying. For whatever reason, he was so, hell-bent on everything he was saying, but he would just stand up there at that microphone and just talk for hours, and then he'd go down and he'd ask people to raise their hands, and, they were called, they were our elders, which I think is pretty similar in the Mormon faith, as you call them elders. So I don't know if that's like traditional among all religions with older people in the we call them congregations. I don't know what y'all call them.
We call them congregations. It depends on how big the church is. Sometimes it's wards. So like where I live, it would be like I live in Champaign-Urbana. I'd be in like the Champaign ward or the Urbana ward.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah, so we would have, congregations of people, and I just remember sitting there, and I would, just draw the whole time. Like, I would just be coloring and drawing and shit. Like, I was it was so boring to me. And, but it was like all of this, it felt like it was all of this important information, like I was in some kind of interrogation. And my mother would always make me read, one scripture, because they would call on people from the audience. And this is exactly where I started to notice that brainwashing element come in, was they would specifically call on the younger kids, the younger members of the congregation, because they wanted them to say something that they could correct, if that makes sense. So, they would ask me who wants to read scripture, whatever, from whatever. And, my mom would, nudge me, and I'd have to raise my hand, and they'd bring a microphone over to me, and I'd read it. But it's like I never retained anything. I was always a very skeptical child to begin with, so it was like I was that kid that knew a bullshitter. I just knew a bullshitter when I saw one, and I was 5, and I still would just kind of sit there in my seat and roll my eye. I would fall asleep, and my mom would she wouldn't smack me, she'd flick me. She would flick me on the head, and goddamn did that hurt. She had these fucking just thick nails. She has very thick nails, and God can she flick like a motherfucker, because I would start falling asleep, and she would just right in the side of my head, right in my temple. It was horrible, but that was that was what she would do, so she didn't have to yell at me or anything during the middle of the service. But I find it, so interesting that they focus so strongly on the youths, on the ones who were being shaped. It was very much that cult mentality that people, say it is. Obviously we're not Scientologists. We don't believe in lizard men and, locking people in closets. But, to follow that vein, whereas maybe they didn't lock people in closets, they would disfellowship you if you did anything they didn't agree with, whether you had premarital sex, you drank alcohol, which is very interesting, because we were talking about cherry pickers, and that's exactly how Jehovah's Witnesses are too. I mean, they're no different. They're really not. They're no different at all. They, they say don't do this and don't do this, but the elder of our congregation was, cheating on his wife. He was an adulterer, it was and I remember being, a child and being dragged through those meetings and shuffling into the pew, and then everybody would gather outside after the meeting had conceded. After it was 2 to 4 hour long meetings. I'm not kidding you. It was long as fuck. It was so much. It was overkill. It was overkill, and I didn't retain shit. But, I remember all of the elders, coming up to me and asking me, what I learned and what I took away from this meeting, and I was just I don't know. What do you want me to say? I have no fucking idea. I really don't know.
I feel a lot of that. So like a lot of what you said is very similar to my experience to how the church situation went down. We went every Sunday. Let's see. Yeah, it was every Sunday. Oh, if it was the first Sunday of the month, it would be what's called Fast Sunday, which means we wouldn't eat breakfast or lunch. Essentially, we'd wait until dinner, because of...
Why is that?
You know what? You can ask me all you want, but I cannot tell you a good answer.
You still don't know.
I just did it because Mom said not to.
Yep, that's relatable.
Among that, so like first Sundays would be like Fast Sunday, but if you go into a church, if you go into a Mormon, an LDS church, what you're going to notice that's a bit different than other Christians, even like more conservative Christian churches,
yeah,
is that they do not have crosses.
Interesting.
Or anything.
You know,
Mormons do not. Mormons believe that is idolatrous. Essentially, so like to have those, what we call sacrament meeting, is considered irreverent. You know, reverency is like emphasized a lot.
Yeah. In what context?
Being very quiet, so much so that there are some instruments, like sometimes we'd have little musical interludes, and some people who knew how to play instruments would play something, but they limited to which instruments it could be, so I could not play my French horn, because brass was considered irreverent in the church context, whereas a flute or a violin could play.
Wow. That's racist against instruments. That's instrumentist. That's fucked up.
I would be able to play my horn during Christmas. So there was that.
I find that super interesting.
Yeah, French horn is a Christmassy instrument, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, so it's very similar. There were pews. As far as who was doing the preaching and the lesson of that day, it was so like the setup with everyone. It's whoever was called upon that week. So it's usually a random member of the congregational ward, as we call it, random member of the ward, to give a talk about what the subject is of that day. Mm-hmm. And they would prepare they'd get a week in advance, right? Because, and so that they could do their research and study and give their testimony, essentially.
Yeah.
And the people residing, there would be a bishop, there would be, first counselor and second counselor.
Okay.
For each ward. And with a ward, all wards go into what's called a stake. So there's a stake presidency and there's a ward presidency, right? It's kind of a bit of levels here.
Do you have elections?
No, these are called... Here's where we get weird. These are called of God, quote unquote. So essentially, this council prays about it. Just, and they decide who is, going to be the next, who's going to be released and who's going to be, taking their place. These are all not paid jobs. These are all volunteer, essentially. Every job comes down to even the smallest thing: primary teachers, organ player, choir conductor, and...
So jobs, basically jobs.
Yes. That you don't get paid for.
Yeah, you don't get, like, an internship.
And so here's something about the presidency. So you have to be male to hold the priesthood. There are two kinds of priesthoods. I'm getting into a lot of theology here. It's really hard to explain. There is the Aaronic priesthood, Aaron, like named after Aaron, Aaronic priesthood, which is what boys from 12 to, I believe, 16 hold.
Okay.
And then there is Melchizedek priesthood, which is what the rest of the adults have.
Yeah.
So people presiding over the church have what's called Melchizedek priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
And they are in charge of ward or presidency or stake.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and oftentimes, and what I have noticed is this isn't mentioned, but it seems to be, at least from what I've observed, very evident that the people who are charged, people who are given these positions of power, were often people who are already, like, wealthy and had good jobs. Like,
already in positions of power, basically.
Yeah. Essentially. And I think that comes down to the tithing aspect of it all, because you're supposed to give 10% of your paycheck as tithing to the church.
Same.
Right?
Same.
So, if somebody has a better paying job and is paying that 10% every time they get a paycheck, that means more money for the church, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that means you are providing more for the church, which means you are pious, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's definitely what's been going on. Some people may deny that, but that's what I've observed in my dealings with the church.
Yeah.
I mean, I can apply stories here, but I want to keep this as brief as I can, because there's a lot of information.
There's a lot to get to. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, like, the churches would be, you know, we had pews similar to what you had. The people handing out the sacrament would be blessed by more people with the Melchizedek priesthood and handed out by people with the Aaronic priesthood. So kids from, these boys from 12 to 16 would hand out the sacrament, which would just be broken up bread and these tiny, tiny, tiny cups of water. Because we don't drink wine. We don't drink alcohol or caffeine.
Yeah.
Wait,
caffeine?
Yeah, no caffeine.
Oh, okay. Damn.
Yeah. Again, you can ask me why, but I couldn't tell you. Well, the real reason is caffeine is seen as an addictive substance, which, you know what? I'm going to give them that. They are correct in that assessment.
It is. It definitely is.
I'm not going to lie. You're right. You're right on that one.
They got that one right.
No, they handed out the water, but, like, as far as any who would be giving talks, it was essentially anyone. Could be me, could be woman just down the pew from me.
They just pick at random.
Yeah. And oftentimes I find that very anxiety-inducing, because that means I have to research and read. And like you said, that's the indoctrination aspect of it, because it gets you to research and all of that
brainwash
stuff.
yourself, because they don't want to bother with it.
Basically, it's so incredible how much it is. Okay, think about, like, Mormons, at least the ones that I grew up around. I do not like the church one bit as a hierarchy, as anything.
Yeah.
But, like, among the people I went to church with, they are probably the most earnest to a fault people I've met.
How so?
They are very, very honest.
Oh. Too honest.
I mean that to a fault. You
Yeah.
know? They're too honest. They will snitch about everything.
Oh, I got you. Oh, shit.
You know, like, and there are aspects where that's like, not the snitch part, but I mean, like, being truthful is virtue, but at the same time, it's also, like, they are afraid to lie, because that is a sin, and they genuinely, that's the thing about Mormons, they genuinely believe what is, what is taught to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'll get that with any religion, but
Sure,
I've noticed that with a lot of the Mormons, even from other churches that I've, from other wards and branches that I've met.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of similar to the way yours works, but again, we have like a weird, different dogma that goes into how we do things.
Yeah, for sure. No, see, and with with Jehovah's Witnesses, and we were talking a little bit about earlier, I wanted to come back to that, to circle back to the whole holidays thing, is that, you said that you had never, that's why I find it super interesting that, Mormons being a faith that's, I guess, like, would you consider that in the Christian faith, like, as a, like a...
I would, because they do believe in Christ. I feel like that is the defining aspect, but there are some Christianities and even some Mormons that are like, I'm not so sure if we can, like, consider ourselves Christians. Because of the separate book and the separate, but, in my opinion, they are Christians. Yeah,
see, and Jehovah's Witnesses definitely classify themselves the same. They classify, we are, I still say we. Do you ever find yourself doing that, saying we?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you probably caught me doing
that. You find yourself saying we a lot because it's how it's how you spent, for me, it was at least 10 years of my life, till my parents got divorced, and then we stopped doing that. But... See, with the whole religion, or with the holidays thing, it's like my experience as, and this is also, I made a post the other day because I saw Facebook reminded me that I missed, like, a lot of my close friends, people I talk to at least on a semi-regular basis, enough to call them, that's my friend, their birthdays had passed, and I didn't even, I didn't post anything on their wall, I didn't even know. And it's like, I had to make a post because I was just like, you know what, I hope people don't think that I'm just a garbage person who doesn't care. I was like, you guys have to acknowledge that my first birthday, I was 10 years old because my parents had split up when I was 9. And then when I was 10 years old, my mom said, fuck it. And she gave me my first birthday. Bitch, we rented a Hummer limo, a pink Hummer limo, and we went to Studio Movie Grill. And then my trans ass said, I want to go to the skate park. I want to look cool in front of all the fuck boys. And it was funny, not to get too off topic, but I remember I told the driver that, and he tried to pull into the skate park, and he was like, I can't make it. The car's too long. And I was like, fuck, okay. But, like, no, in school was a very challenging experience for me, too, because... every single holiday, it didn't matter if it was Valentine's Day, when everybody got to make their own, Valentine's boxes that did all this crazy shit, like you put the Valentine in the box and it, like, goes through this fucking hamster tube or whatever the fuck, Jerry from second grade had made, to get his Valentines. Everybody would go around the class giving each other Valentines, and they had to make one for every student. Well, I can't tell you how many times, because I moved so much when I was younger. I was born in Watauga. I was raised in Watauga for a year, and then I moved to Fort Worth, then I moved to the Boonies, then I moved to Decatur, then I moved to Dallas. It's like I've been everywhere in this immediate, 100 to 150 mile radius of Dallas, and I've had to explain that so many times as a youth to my teachers about why, number one, I can't salute the flag. We're not allowed to salute the flag. That's a no-no, because, and you know what that is, like you were saying, that's the one thing they got right earlier, is that's the one thing that I feel like Jehovah's Witnesses got right, is that we do not owe our allegiance to a fucking flag, to a piece of cloth. And especially that does still, I do still kind of reflect on that nowadays, given the current, social climate. There's just the fucking racism in our society and in our country, and all the negative impacts it's having on us as a society. It's like, I do definitely remember that. I remember, when they would sing the national anthem, or at the pep rallies and shit, the football games. I couldn't sing the national anthem, so basically I was doing the equivalent of kneeling. The teachers would still, a lot of the time, they would get really bent out of shape. And that was something that really shaped me as a person, which I want to get into as well, is how this stuff has affected us. I would stand in the assembly line in the hall where everybody would take roll or whatever. And, everybody would salute the flag every single morning. Well, my ass was the only one not putting my hand over my heart and just standing there. And it wasn't because I had a bad attitude. It was because I was genuinely scared. It was like, because so many people in the Jehovah's Witnesses faith, so many people, if they are disfellowshipped for the tiniest things. And disfellowship is basically like, you are ostracized, you are outcast, your parents can't talk to you, anybody in the congregation who talks to you or associates you will be disfellowshipped as well. It is like, it is such a cult mentality. It's like, if you're not with us, you're against us. And it's taboo for anybody to interact with that person. For instance, my aunt, she left the faith. My grandma and grandpa have not talked to her since, and that was maybe 20 years ago. No, more than 20 years, because I don't think she was even still in the faith. I'm 22 now, so I don't think she was even still in the faith back when I was a kid. So, like, for, 25 years, her parents haven't talked to her. That's something that's like, wow. Hi, Kevy, welcome to the chat. Feel free to, I see that, hi. Feel free to chime in if you'd like to participate. But, that was something that I, picked up on really early on, was that I was constantly ridiculed by the other students in the class, and that affected who I became as a person, because I would always get made fun of. Why, as a Jehovah's Witness, why was I not saluting the flag? The teachers would get pissed at me. The teachers would try to make me go sit in the corner, for not saluting the flag, not fucking the anthem, not singing the anthem. There were all those kinds of things. I was really affected negatively by that, because I was the only Jehovah's Witness in every single fucking school that I went to. I was the minority upon minorities in terms of there wasn't a lot of black students and Hispanic students where I went to school. So it was like I was that minority. Like I was that one kid that never got to give out Valentines, never got to participate in holiday activities, never got to decorate Easter eggs, never got to do white elephant during Christmas time. I fucking wasn't even allowed to color a goddamn shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. Like, legitimately, there was so much, and I didn't understand that. I really didn't. I didn't understand how, they would portray these, and they're not wrong. I will say that they're not wrong. All of these celebrations and holidays are pagan based. They're not wrong in that, but they took that to an extreme, and it just no birthdays, no nothing. So it's like, even to this day, I do, like I said, have to apologize to my friends, because it's like I've never said happy birthday in my life. Like, never have I been like seen that, oh, it's somebody's birthday, happy birthday, unless they're right in front of my face and say it's my birthday, then I'll just be like, oh, happy birthday, whatever. But, and also something that's interesting is we weren't allowed to say bless you when people sneezed. That's a thing. We're not allowed to say bless you, because that implies that I'm blessing you because you expelled a demon, and it's just, it's like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. Like, but there's so many things like that I didn't grow up around that really definitely did, I feel like, impact me as a person and ultimately as an artist now, is that, it wasn't until I was in the ICU a year ago, actually, like literally a year ago on August like 1st, a year ago, I had open heart surgery, and it's like, another big thing is that Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to give blood. We're not allowed to give blood, and we're not allowed to accept blood. So here's what was interesting is that I had gone to the Baylor ICU, or ER rather, a couple times, about 3 or 4 times, and the Baylor ICU did not triage me at all. I was complaining of left arm pain, abdominal pain, and I was also losing oxygen to my brain. So I lost about a week of time before I was eventually admitted into the ICU. But the first thing they did when I went in, they sent me out with a fucking arm sling, and my heart was failing. You know, like, it was literally, if I had gone into the ICU even an hour after I'd be dead. You know, it was that serious that God, like, I remember my mom telling me after I woke up that the first thing they said after they looked at me and took my vitals, you know, I had a red blood cell count of 4, and then a white blood cell count of 10. Like, it was, they were like, we have to get him on blood transfusions right fucking now. Now, you know, my mom, obviously I'm her child. She was like, yes, do whatever the fuck you have to do. Like I find that really just horrific that you wouldn't save your child's life because somebody in your congregation or your faith, whatever, says, no, don't do that. That's not good. Don't take blood. So my dad, I'm estranged from my father now, for better, honestly. You know, when I came out, he wasn't very accepting of it, and I was just like, you know what, fuck you, you're missing out on a cool kid, bye. And, you know, because I was an adult at that point. But regardless, he ended up coming to the hospital, just to kind of out of obligation is what it felt like, you know, after I heard about it. Out of obligation, he came to the hospital. He stayed through half of my open heart surgery, the first half. And then I was told that the surgeon came out, or whoever it was, and gave my family in the waiting room, you know, like, a good update. They were like, well, you know, we're halfway through. We're going on to, you know, the valve replacement. We've cut out all the, you know, infection, all of the vegetation in the heart. Now we're going to go through with the transplant, and there's still only a 50-50 chance he could make it. Well, my mom told me after the fact that she went up to that doctor and she said, his father is coming. Do not tell him that you put him on blood transfusions, because he's still... My dad is not a Jehovah's Witness. He's a poser. He knows that it makes him look good, and he's an abuser. So he uses... He uses religion as a way to gaslight people into thinking that they're the problem, not him. Oh, because I'm a Jehovah's Witness, you know, I can't be the problem. That kind of thing. So I also found, like, you know, that was definitely a big turning point, I feel like, in my mother's life, because she never really she was kind of like in your position where you are, where it's like you keep your relatives and, you know, your parents and the people in your family who are still associated with these various faiths, you keep them in mind because you don't want to post or say things that you know they're not going to agree with, or that's going to make them want to lecture you, etc. It's like she does still try to protect them. And even when I was in the ICU and my grandma came to visit me, you know, she tried to talk to me about, you know, there's this new, you know, you can go to watchtower.com or whatever the fuck it was. She's like, you can go to this website and while you're in the hospital, and, you know, because I was still in there for 2 weeks in physical therapy after a month. So it was like, you know, she was trying to get me to go online and read about Jehovah and all this shit. And I just kindly looked at her and I was like, you know, thank you, Grandma, but I really don't think that I'm gonna do that, because I'm gonna be honest with her. I'm not gonna kiss her ass and make her think that I am something that I'm not. But, you know, I thanked her for her recommendation and her advice, and I was like, you know, I really appreciate that. I just don't think that that's for me. And surprisingly, you know, she was cool with it. And, you know, being a trans person, I was surprised that, honestly, it took my mother longer than my fucking grandma to call me by the right name and right pronouns. I thought that was really interesting, seeing as, you know, she's 80 something now. Well, actually, I think my grandpa's like 88 and she's probably like 82 or something like that. So they're old codgers, to say the least. But like, that was definitely something that I had to learn how to do, was to be respectful but also speak my truth, especially with like these elders, you know, who still wanted to talk to me. It's like, I have no fear of being quote unquote disfellowshipped, because I don't care. It was never my belief anyway. It was just what I was raised in, you know.
Yeah.
So there's
that's a real interesting situation. As far as like how religion has like affected my life, like let's start with school. So in school, because I was going to school in Illinois, there weren't a whole lot of Mormons in my town. Now, I wasn't the only one. There was enough that there was a ward for us in my town, but overall there weren't too many. Usually I was the only one or one of two in my class.
Yeah.
Right? So I would, you know, and as far as like we'd celebrate the holidays, so that was a bit different, but as far as I couldn't have any caffeine, and that went into sodas, right? And so like often, if I would go to a friend's birthday party, or if I would go to a school function, I had to make sure that they had because Sprite was non-caffeinated.
Oh, Sprite! Oh my God!
Or at the least water.
Yeah. Jesus.
I wasn't allowed to have coffee, not allowed to have tea. And then some people will be like, well, I've seen you eat chocolate. Chocolate has, like, caffeine. And I'm like, look, I don't make the rules, okay? I just know I'm not supposed to have it. So leave me alone. Let me live my life.
Yeah. Let me live my fucking life.
Let me live the life that I can somewhat have control over.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. See.
So, you know, I get, okay, so not to like get into a different subject, but I was bullied for other reasons.
Yeah.
But being Mormon definitely didn't help, because I had a lot of restrictions of what I could do, and also I was very innocent to things, even up to high school.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it would be a lot of, I wouldn't pick up on sexual innuendo. One, because I have autism, two, because of that innocence that I have, right? So yeah. I'm like, I'm not picking that up. And then they would kind of use that to, you know, laugh about it.
Oh, yeah. See, I remember the first time that I ever found out what a boner was. I was 10 or 11 years old, so this was right after my parents split up and my mom and I had finally moved to Dallas, away from, you know, him and the area, because we lived in the country in the boonies. So we moved out to Dallas for my mom to have a better opportunity, right? And I was in band, so I wanted to play the flute, but they wouldn't let me. They said, we already have too many flutes, you gotta play the clarinet. And I was like, fuck. And so everybody called me Squidward, and I fucking hated it. It's so, I mean, now I'm like, come on, that's unoriginal as fuck. Like, you guys, come on. But I remember we were walking past, like, the little outdoor, kind of like mobile homes that they had for some of the classes that were air conditioned, because there were too many band students that they couldn't teach them all at the same time in the same band hall. So we were walking back, and the trombones were ahead of me, and I remember I looked up at them and I said something along the lines of, oh my god, someone needs to tell the tromboners to slow down. What I hate what I hate more than anything is the students looked back at me and they were like, and after the fact, I'm like, how the fuck did they know about what that meant, but I didn't? Somebody had to explain it to me, and I was just like, but here's the thing is I wasn't super sheltered in terms of my father. Like, I grew up watching things like Kill Bill, Final Destination, The Hills Have Eyes, like just scary movies. The Fifth Element, we watched that a lot. Not that that's a scary movie per se, but we watched a lot of gory movies, my father and I. And my mom hated it because my mom was a true Jehovah's Witness. My dad, like I said, was just a poser. It was all just for show. Yeah. He would help me fake sick so that I could stay home and watch football with him instead of going to the meetings with my mom. Like, he's really just, he's that guy, you know, who's just a lot of talk, and as soon as he gets home, he takes off his tie and pops open 9 beers and just watches whatever. So it's like I wasn't sheltered in that respect. I grew up with a lot of those dark themes that are commonly, you know, reflected in my drag today, are those really dark, you know, gruesome themes. But like, I feel like that was projected into me at such a young age that I kind of became like, and Zombieland. I remember watching Zombieland with my dad, and I couldn't watch it the first time. After like the guy ripped in the limo scene, like the very beginning when he like ripped his neck veins or whatever, tendons out, I was like, nope, can't do it. But then I came back around and I watched it, and I could finally get used to it. So it's funny being a Jehovah's Witness, and also, or being raised that way anyway, and also being raised so desensitized to a lot of things. Like, I also wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. So, you know, it took one of my mom's weird boyfriends when I was 11 years old to buy me the entire Harry Potter book set, because when he had heard that I had never read them, he was like, he was a cute little Indian guy. Oh, he was the sweetest guy. I remember him. But he bought me the whole book set because he wanted me to read them. And I was just like, damn, okay. So I read them all in fucking 3 months. Like, I was like, god damn, this is what I've been missing out on.
I understand like, I was also kind of in like a halfway sheltered, but like there was a lot of things that I, you know, saw that a lot of my more what I like to call my they are very Mormon, meaning that both of their parents are Mormon. My dad wasn't Mormon, so I always had that sort of agnostic perspective as well.
Sure, yeah.
But so I some of that. But here's the thing about going to school while being Mormon is that I also went to a morning. So a lot of practicing LDS kids in high school will go to what's called seminary. Mm-hmm. And if you're in Utah, there are enough of them that it's usually an after-school program. But here, in places where there's not a whole lot of us, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to make my classes for 6 a.m.
Wow.
So that it's and then go to school at around like 8, you know, and essentially at these seminary classes, we would read the Bible, Book of Mormon, do discussions. Yeah. Essentially, my entire life was surrounded by reading these texts. Yeah. No matter where I was, even if I was away from church.
Was it like homework?
Yeah, essentially.
Like religious homework.
Yeah, well, it'd usually be doing readings and doing different stuff. But it's just, and so then I'd also be tired, you know, at school, because I'm also participating in theater, which is, you know, we'd sometimes go a bit late if we were having a show coming up, and I'd be very tired the next morning. Sure. And it's just, you know, and I think it's affected a lot of my schoolwork too, because I was also, again, I don't want to delve into something off topic, but I was also in special education. I had to have an IEP because I had a hard time.
Sure, yeah.
Paying attention to the OCD and autism and all that.
Yeah.
And so this, I feel like it did make it a little hard for me to get through school. But what this seminary did was also provide, like, if you got through this with essentially good grades and good honors,
Yeah.
that counted towards credit if you were going to BYU.
What's that?
BYU is Brigham Young University in Utah.
Oh.
And there's also Brigham Young University in Idaho.
Okay.
And I think there's one in Hawaii, but none of us were going to go to there.
Damn.
Me.
The one good thing I could have taken. Hawaii.
Yeah. But it's like that, and so that, like, it really consumed a lot of what I knew about, like, I was having to go to school, but also doing, like, a separate school that had, like, a different theology, and it was tiring.
I'm sure.
And it also consumed a lot of my life, and it got a lot of that indoctrination or brainwashing, as you know, a lot of people.
It is,
like,
I mean, it's very accurate, though.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was also having a lot of, I was also having a lot of issues with school bullying, and I was having a lot of home problems. I didn't have a great relationship with my brother, who was trying to leave the church, but he also has a lot of anger issues and would take that out on me in various violent outbursts.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of drove me to the church for safety, because even though I was receiving a lot of abuse from the home and from school, and even though there was a lot of gaslighting going on with the church that I may not have recognized at the time, it seemed like the safest place for me.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that drove me to study a lot more the church and be interested in the church, because this is, first of all, one thing that I now know that I can learn a whole lot about. Yeah. And then the other thing being it's safe, you know? It's providing me a safe place to be. And of course, that's going to come into, I was going to find struggle in that when I find out, oh shit, I'm bisexual.
Damn! They don't want to hear that. You know? They don't want to hear that.
It's gonna get even more complicated when I'm like, shit, I don't think I'm a woman.
Yeah.
But like, I'm also not a man.
You're like Prince. I'm not a woman. I'm not a man. I'm something you will never understand.
No, and you know, and so the thing about LDS religion is that they do not shun people. They do something worse.
Oh.
They do something. Well, what I think. Well, worse is it's a subjective idea, but they can kill someone with kindness. If that makes sense.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
You know how there's like that, being gay is okay so long as you don't act upon it, you know.
What the fuck? What does that even mean?
It means, you know, don't, like, be gay, but don't be gay.
Don't be gay. Good Lord.
And that was another line in the Book of Mormon musical that was actually really accurate. And so, like, I'm finding out that I think I like girls, and I think that I'm not quite aligning with the gender that I have been
designated,
assigned here.
Mm-hmm.
And that also seemed to be very frustrated with my position in the church, because I am learning all of these things. I am learning, you know, all of this academia, like, as far as the church is concerned, their, you know, doctrine. And I am not allowed to be, you know, in a higher up position other than, you know, maybe a, what they call Relief Society, which is all the women go into, like, this Relief Society is all the women of the church, all the wives and adult women of the church coming together in their own little congregation after the sacrament meeting, and then talking about more church things.
See, I want to...
I
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to be... No, it's okay. I think I was a little bit frustrated that I was doomed to be a wife. That was all I was going to be at the church.
That's a really... That's heavy. That was my question was, before we get to Kevy's comment, which I see she commented in here, we can get to that in a moment. I wanted to ask a little bit about the wives situation, because, I grew up watching with my parents the show Big Love. I'm sure you've heard of it. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of it. Big Love was a show that my mother and father used to watch, and I find that really interesting now, being an adult and looking back on that and be like, wow, this was a group of Jehovah's Witnesses watching a, drama TV show about Mormonism. And I was like, what? I was like, what?
The thing about those shows is that those are what we call fundamentalist Mormons. Those are not necessarily LDS Mormons, what I grew up with. Fundamentalist Mormons are the offshoot of Mormons that when the U.S. decided to outlaw polygamy, when Utah became a state, they were like, okay, by the way, polygamy is illegal. One of the tenets, one of the articles of faith for the LDS Church is we have to follow the laws of the land, right?
Yeah.
So the LDS Church was like, all right, pack it in, boys. Fun's over. Let's we're done here.
Yeah.
And then the some of them were like, no, we wanna keep polygamy. We want to have multiple wives and stuff. We don't care about no laws.
That's
so then they relegated themselves to more southern Utah areas.
Oh.
And so they're called the fundamentalist Mormons, and they can come in either really just mundane to you have these towns of these fundamentalist Mormons that are really secluded and violent and terrible.
And that's in any religion.
So technically they're not associated with the LDS Church, but they are Mormon, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the LDS Church denounces them, as far as if they are LDS Church members. However, that still makes them Mormon because it comes from that religion, so to speak.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, and but the funny thing about this is that when I was learning we actually learned about polygamy in church, and basically the lowdown is we don't practice it anymore. However, it probably won't be because we believe life will go on after in heaven and stuff like that, so people will be married in heaven. Some people will be married to some people will have multiple wives, or multiple really multiple wives, but in my mind I was like, really, I can have multiple people to be married to, because I didn't realize I was also polyamorous.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh wait, no, that just applies to guys having multiple wives.
That's fucked.
And see, I was like, I was like, well, if he's married to her, then I'm also technically married to her, so therefore
you can fuck her.
Both a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
So, what you gonna do?
So, Kevy put a comment in here. She said that I was taught that I was very special, chosen child. Apparently, when my mom was pregnant with me, the doctors said that I had all sorts of abnormalities, a football-shaped head, kidney disease, etc. My parents were part of an organization that founded Christian schools in India. When they heard about my mother's condition, they made all the children at the schools pray for me. It worked because I came out sans deformities. Wow, that's really interesting.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, that's all. That's the big part of what I have to say is wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I would love you to expand on that in the comments, Kevy, because that's wow. Because it's interesting, being in a discussion like this where I don't really know what you believe in now, Spank, but it's like for me now, it's ironic how I identify. Because, like I said earlier, I studied with the Hare Krishnas for a year. Really studied. Went to the temple twice a week, helped them cook prasadam in the kitchen, went every single Wednesday to their darshan room where they would have a different swami come in and basically read from the Bhagavad Gita because... and we would all just gather around in circles, and one of the members of that, I guess, kind of like group, in Jehovah's Witnesses terms, a congregation, essentially. But there were different people there every week. They were very interested because I was always very into the Beatles, and George Harrison specifically. He was the one who touched me the most as I was growing up, kind of just figuring myself out, And so I have a shit ton of Beatles tattoos now, but that was what kind of opened my eyes to wanting to learn more about the Hare Krishna faith. And it was they got me a mridanga, and I played mridanga and guitar for them when they're chanting circles and stuff. And it was a very enlightening, eye-opening experience, it really was. But at the end of the day, I did move away from Dallas, and obviously since I moved, I'm not going to drive, 45 minutes to go down there to be there every Wednesday night when I work on Wednesday nights anyway. But regardless, that one thing that faith did kind of awaken in me is that, we all, for lack of a better term, believe in something or another. Whereas I feel like I don't subscribe to believing that there's a big, a blue man in the sky. I don't believe that. It took me a while, like I said, a year I studied with them because I was looking for anything. Because I was so brainwashed by the Jehovah's Witnesses that I wanted anything that I was looking for answers, basically, because I knew that answers were not there. I could see through, their brainwashing techniques, and even as a child, I was like, why would you banish somebody from their, your congregation, from your what's supposed to be a family? Why would you banish them when they make a mistake? People aren't perfect. We're not God. If they want to believe that God is a perfect, all-knowing being, it's why do you hold individuals to the same standard? Which is interesting. But I did take a lot from the Hare Krishnas in terms of what I do believe now, which is, I refer to myself as a Satanist because it gives a lot of shock value because a lot of people don't know what that really means. It's basically a meme. That's how I, kind of refer to the Satanic Temple. It's essentially a meme. It's a bunch of people gathering, basically we don't believe in Satan. We don't worship the devil. The Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple are two very different things that a lot of people don't understand and aren't willing to do the research on. It's basically, I don't really believe... Say that one more time, babe.
I said Satan's merely a concept.
Yes. No, exactly. And it's just, it's a psychological, to me, it's like a psychological experiment to see, when you use the word Satan in describing anything, it doesn't matter what the reality of it, if the person on the other side of you is a Christian or what have you, they're going to be like, what? You're what? You worship the devil and sacrifice animals and chant and, it's no, I don't do any of that shit. But, you know, in reality, I do take a lot from that Hare Krishna faith that I did study for. I consider a year a long time. Like, it was for me. I, you know, was living in the moment every time I was with them. And, you know, I still smoked pot and shit, even though they didn't, you know, they're supposed to be abstinent from all sorts of, like, drugs, alcohol, everything. And, like, they did teach me a lot, though. I did walk away with a lot, because I will tell you that as somebody who doesn't believe in a physical, like, God, like I feel like people humanize God a lot in Christian text. It's like, oh, he's a big man in the sky. No, I feel like the concept of God is very misunderstood and mistranslated, and that's one of the biggest issues in our religious societies and people, is that God to me is like the universe. I'm a huge fucking space universe nut. Like, I love it. So I've done a lot of research into that too, and it's like, having done all that research into, you know, how the universe was created, the Big Bang, you know, how it's ever expanding, stuff like that, I've kind of gotten to the point, I've come to the conclusion that God is not a person or a being or a living entity so much as God as I acknowledge him. And it's funny because I still say him because, you know, again, that's how we were raised, is to acknowledge God as that male figure, is that father figure, is that God is more of an energy that is all across the universe. And it's like, because to me, and this is the argument I use a lot of the time when having religious discourses with people, is, okay, so do you think that Earth is the center of the universe? Quick answer, no, it's not. Do you think that we are the only living beings in the universe? Quick answer, no, we're probably not. We don't have proof that there are others. We do have proof, you know, that there are, like, microorganisms and shit that they found on the waters of Mars or whatever it is. I can't really remember back to when it was they discovered whatever it was, some sort of microorganisms. But it's like, it is, I find, very small and narrow-minded of people in traditional Christian faiths, as well as, honestly, unorthodox Christian faiths, like the ones like, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses and Latter-day Saints and Mormonism, where it's like, we're still considered Christians, but, like, we're not Christians, if that makes any sense.
Something that I endured as, like, actually, I forgot to mention this, as a kid growing up in a non-Mormon area, a lot of the places that the place that I went to school with was still a somewhat conservative town. Yeah. Because it was a small town in Illinois. And so there were a lot of Christian towns, and they do not... The relationship was sometimes weird, because I had some classmates who thought the fact that I was Mormon is bad because their parents taught them that we have a separate book, and that means we are worshiping.
They're right, you're wrong.
And you know what? They are right about that false prophet, but not in the way that they think.
Yeah. No, agree.
And so, like, I actually had a friend, and he was a good friend for a while. Well, not a good friend, I should say, but
a casual friend.
He was essentially like, I want to be friends with you, but I can't, because I believe that you believe in a false prophet, and that's going to damn you for all eternity, essentially. And I'm like, damn, huh?
Shit, that's deep, bro.
Or, sorry, my Mormon language, dang, son.
Dang, son!
Dang diddly do. I just want to be friends with you. But it was fine, he was kind of an ass. Anyway, oh god, my falling out of the church is kind of, I wouldn't say interesting, well, I don't know. So, I was kind of on the fence about everything. I turned 18, I just graduated high school. I was thinking of going to our community college that we have here for like maybe a year, and then going to Brigham Young University to study music. I was kind of struggling with my faith because I recognized to myself, I came out to myself as bisexual.
Yeah.
Like, I know now that I have to pretend. You know, and
that's
that
horrible.
it's not just something that is subconscious. Now it is fully conscious.
Damn, that's horrible.
And so I'm like, no, it's fine. I like guys. I can still make this work.
Oh.
That was my mentality going into it.
Sure.
Like, it's fine. It's cool. It's fine. But no, it was not fine.
No, alas, 'twas not. 'Twas not fine.
And one of the things that I really couldn't, this was when I was finding out that their ideas of gender identity were also very skewed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't. You mean that I've been wearing dresses all this time, and I'm really looking at these nice-ass suits?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that I can never wear a suit here in this nice building? No matter if it's real nice, it looks nice. It's not like I'm trying to, draw attention here. I just want to wear
some clothing.
I just want to wear a nice pants, nice pantsuit.
Yeah.
And that was considered inappropriate. And I was also I was called as a primary teacher.
Okay.
That means that I was after we have sacrament meeting, essentially we have 2 hours. So sacrament meeting is an hour, and then we split off to like these classrooms for 2 hours.
Okay.
Essentially, I was in charge of the 3 and 4-year-olds.
Oh.
That was essentially just I would incorporate like lessons and shit, but that was just babysitting. I did tell people I was a primary. I was a Sunday school teacher, but really I was just a babysitter.
Yeah. That's what I think every time somebody tells me that. I'm like, so you just like you can't really educate toddlers on what God is, so you just basically made sure that they didn't shit themselves and sit in it.
I just fed them snacks until like their parents were done with their classroom stuff.
Yeah.
But then after I was done with that, I went to what was called the singles ward. The singles ward is for college age members who we have a separate building because it's on the I live next to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana.
Yeah.
Right, so they have a building that is what's called the Institute. So it's essentially a LDS church, but like more condensed and for college kids. And the first thing I noticed when I went in there is no babies were crying. Mormons have a lot of babies.
I would assume so.
And so going into a place where it's all single people,
yeah,
it was dead silent. And I'm like, oh, like any sort of movement would make like a in the dead silence of it all.
Oh my god.
And that was and then I started going there, and we started doing lessons and stuff. And I'm really holding on to my faith here because I'm being stubborn. Now I'm being like, no, it's got to be worth it. It's worth it. Okay, we're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
I'm really denying myself here.
Yeah.
But I'm determined to live the life I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
Because that would make my mother very happy.
Do you care a lot about your mother's happiness?
Yes.
Do you think
and
that...
I think...
Go ahead.
I think that was one of my driving forces for this, for me staying in the church.
Yeah.
Because it would make my mom happy, because she really wanted me to be a very good Mormon, because she felt like in many ways, she felt like she failed because she didn't marry into the church.
Sure.
Like to a church member, and so it feels kind of, you feel broken. You feel like your family isn't whole because you can't marry in the temple. And families are a huge deal like you said in Jehovah's Witnesses as well, families are a huge deal for Mormons.
Mm-hmm.
And to have them together in heaven is a huge, you know, very, very daunting deal.
Yeah.
And so I was holding on. I was called to do some lessons to talk about, and I was like, oh, this is something that I can do. So I wanted to talk about the historical context in which these Bible stories were told, right? I'm like, this is perfect. I can do this.
Yeah.
But they really didn't want that. They didn't want a new perspective on the religion.
They wanted a repetition.
Yeah, they wanted a repetition, but like not so obvious repetition. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to essentially stick to the curriculum. You know,
it's how I graduated. How I finished my 2 semesters of or 1 semester rather of college English class, which is basically repeating the same exact line a million different times in different words throughout the entire essay.
Oh yeah, and and one of the things that I think really put a nail in the coffin, because I'm really not feeling the things that I thought I would feel.
Yeah.
And I find out, I then talk to my bishop, because we do like a meeting. Everyone after they turn 12 does a meeting with their bishop at least once every month.
Yeah.
And I was meeting up with the bishop, and he told me, you know, now that I'm an adult and I now have a job, I'm going to have to start paying 10% of my tithing, which I've been doing like sporadically, but not because I haven't really had like a steady source of income.
Sure.
But
and you come first, ultimately.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that he explained it to me that I am considered an inactive member if I don't pay tithing.
What?
And that was when I said, "Oh shit, this is a scam." Okay, you know, I can't do this. And it was. It's kind of a hard thing to really like analyze, because what essentially they were doing was, hey, now that you've become an adult, now you have to pay premium.
Yeah, now you have to pay your subscription to be a part of our faith.
Yeah. And so essentially you're not out of the faith, right? You're still a member, but when you are considered inactive, that means that you cannot participate in ordinances.
In what?
Temple ordinances.
Oh.
And that means like I can't do baptisms for the dead. I can't. That's another thing I will probably get into. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, we got time.
But like there are different things, like I can't like become a missionary if I'm not considered a full member. Right?
Yeah.
If I have a job and I'm not paying my tithing, because what they believe is that money does not belong to me, that money belongs to God.
Bullshit. What the fuck is God gonna do with money?
And so that was the nail in the coffin, where I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is a scam. And it was really hard. And I think so somebody explained it really well, and I'm paraphrasing here. This is actually on Quora, of all places.
On the Torah?
I don't remember this person. Yeah, like the
Jewish Bible?
What? The Quora. 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 On the internet, you ask questions.
Oh. Okay, I got you. I'm with you now.
And somebody said on there that really hit the nail on the head, and it was that losing when you leave the church, and this person was LDS. It's like when you leave the church, it's not so much of a aha moment as much as it's a sort of like reluctant letting go. And it's not a sexy story. It's not, it's not exciting. It's not going to be a brilliant moment. It's just a slow realization that everything you learned was bullshit.
Yeah.
You know? Because you formed your entire... Because I formed my entire life around this.
Oh yeah, it was what we were raised believing was the gospel truth. It was no different than an English class or a math class.
And now I'm left with nothing. Or at least, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
That I now have no purpose. I am now wandering aimlessly in this life because I now I don't know what truth is.
Yeah. Well, and it is very much playing into the tune of the definition of gaslighting too.
Yes, absolutely. That's the word that I typically use when talking about the church, is gaslighting, because that's really what it boils down to. And I've had to have conversations with myself that it's like, you're not dumb for falling for this. You're not.
Well, because you were born and they said this is the truth, and you're a fucking tiny child. You don't understand, you don't realize that, wow, maybe I should question this. No, you take it for the gospel truth because it's what has been drilled into you.
And I often argue with people who are, there are some, like, not all, obviously, there are some atheist people who are really like, oh, well, anybody who follows religion is dumb. And I'm like, you don't fucking know what it's like.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah, no, it's especially when you're raised in that. It's like you think you have a choice? No, you don't have a choice. You live with your parents. You are not old enough to work, and you don't know how to take care of yourself. Like, those things are not, things that children even think about. That's what they're presented with is no different than a textbook of how to live your life. It's like, these are the rules. Follow them. Follow them blindly.
And leaving the church is a whole other thing too, because I still haven't technically left the church. I am still a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
How do you feel about that?
Troubled, actually.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Because there are so many implications about leaving. So because, like I said, the family thing is so important, leaving the church may not affect me, but it'll affect, the
people you love.
My mother, who, family is now even more broken. She and can't feel complete in this, and that hurts me a lot.
She can't feel complete in what?
In heaven, essentially.
Oh.
You can't. She can't be with her entire family in heaven.
Because
that's something that weighs on me. Because
I understand.
A member, I wouldn't be. And so, that's something that weighs on me. Another element is that now, because I was in Illinois, I wasn't surrounded by communities of Mormons. However, if I was to say I was a Utah Mormon, this would affect people who I work with, who I go to school with. Meaning that, these are entire communities where you go to work and your boss is also your bishop,
Yeah.
And if you get excommunicated, which is another thing that's not really quite like you permanently leave either. It's a weird...
No, yeah.
Because, again, like I said, they kill you with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
They always rope you back in. And it's just... The process of leaving is really hard because you have to Oh gosh, sorry. I'm just trying to.
No, you're totally fine. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff to weigh on you. You have to talk to your bishop essentially to be like, I would like to leave. In which case, there's going to be a big back and forth through letters.
Yeah.
About them trying to convince you to stay.
Yep.
They will send missionaries over to have talks with you.
Yep.
And to different events, and I still get that. I still have missionary, at least before COVID. I had missionaries come over to my house. They actually came over while I was rolling a blunt.
Oh, we love it. We love it.
I was, oh shit. But I ignored
the doorbell.
I ignored. Pretend I wasn't home.
Yeah.
But it's a really long, hard process that I'm still not through. They know where I live. If I move, the database just moves, right? Like they get that information, so they know where I live. They know where to send the people. A lot of the people that I grew up with in church, there were some kids who were more rebellious, more rowdy.
Sure.
And then I find out that they eventually served a mission, and they are practicing members, and that scares me.
Wow.
Because that means I'm just going to come back, right?
Yeah. See, I'm interested. In how you were raised? Do you believe in heaven, and do you also believe in hell?
So like that's another complicated thing, because Mormons believe that there are 3 separate heavens, right?
Okay.
And hell isn't hell as much as it's what's called outer darkness. It's more like a void that you float into for all eternity. And God, I want to go there.
Yeah,
because I'm living that void life. But there's the celestial kingdom, which is the highest heaven. That is where you go if you are a member and you are a good person, good pious member, and all of this other things. And there is the terrestrial kingdom, which is the second level. That's for people who aren't members but are essentially good people.
Yeah.
And then there's the telestial kingdom for people who aren't members, or maybe they are members and they've done not so great things in their life.
Yeah.
Outer darkness is reserved for murderers, unforgivable sins like murder and rape, and
I mean, that's good. That's good to know that they condemn rape and murder. That's good.
All that things, and atheists. And I'm like, oh, why do they get the same?
Yeah. See, that's interesting to me, because what does it matter what other people believe? Like, I found that so much in these, in all organized religions, that it's all about, I'm right, you're wrong, and here's why.
I think that idea that the atheists go to, okay, so before you all go to the kingdoms, right, is that you don't go to the kingdoms until Jesus Christ comes back to earth. Before that, you go to either spiritual paradise or spiritual prison, which is essentially kind of the purgatory version of heaven and hell. It's the in-between, right? So, like, good people, good Mormons go to spiritual paradise. Spiritual prison is a place for most everyone else. Now you are able to go into spiritual paradise through missionary work from the people in spiritual paradise going to spiritual prison, right? So basically, missionary work doesn't end after death.
Okay.
So, like, people will be brought in, and so this is where the baptisms for the dead come in. So baptisms for the dead.
Oh my.
So that's essentially when you go to a temple, a Mormon temple.
Yeah.
One of the things that you can do there is be baptized on behalf of somebody who is already dead.
Be baptized on behalf of that person?
It's because they need a physical body to be able to be baptized so that they can go into spiritual paradise.
Okay.
Sense? And so that they have a chance to be able to go into the kingdom of heaven, the top kingdom of heaven, the celestial kingdom. So you basically act as these are always young men and young women, right? So they're between 12 to like 17-year-olds that they're baptizing 17 times in one day on behalf of another person who is already dead.
That's interesting, because I feel like if you're gonna baptize somebody who's already dead, like, is that not just like completely disregarding that person in every aspect of
I'm gonna get into that here.
Go for it.
They got into the LDS church got into trouble. So normally it's people who are Mormon who hand in names of family members who are obviously not Mormon.
Yeah.
It's usually and that database is found through Ancestry.com of all things.
Okay.
If you're Mormon. I'm not joking.
Oh my
and
Christ.
So they get these names, and somebody the LDS Church got in trouble years ago for essentially somebody handed in names of people, family members who died in the Holocaust.
Whoa.
And they baptized them as Mormons. And then the families of those people found out and were like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck?
And so then the LDS Church then had to like put in certain like rules about like who like they can what names you can turn in essentially, because they try to avoid as much controversy as they can. But that was
a lot. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
And so essentially the heaven and hell thing is really complicated from a Mormon's perspective, because also when you go into the kingdom, the highest kingdom, you so here's where we get to the planet thing.
Okay.
So everyone becomes gods.
What?
And goddesses, gods of their own planets, as like God was. So God, as we know him, was just like us. He was a good person who came into he did everything and came into godhood and became God of our planet, our current planet, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're just repeating the process.
See, it's interesting that you said planet, because this is the discourse that I've had with a lot of individuals is that about my beliefs is that because, while using, on my Facebook profile, it says religious, beliefs, Satanism, because again, I use that for the shock value. I don't actually worship the devil. I don't believe in Satan or God in a traditional sense. Now, I will add on to that by saying that because I'm so, into how the universe works and shit, I do strongly believe that there is an energy that is responsible for everything in our universe. But the thing that I find very narrow-minded and closed-minded about, our traditional, Christian faiths is that they seem to think, like I said, I touched on it a little bit earlier, how, Earth is the center of the universe. Like God cares about us and only us. That's a lot of what I hear, and that to me, not even as somebody who has been raised a Jehovah's Witness, has nothing to do with that, I mean, I guess how I was raised does, impact how I think now, but how I believe now. But like, it doesn't make any sense that there would be one all-knowing being that cares about 1/1,000,000th of the entirety of the universe. You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't make sense to me. I do believe that there is some kind of energy and force out there that does guide us, and if we're able to, again, from studying with the Hare Krishnas, I kind of adopted this belief system. I didn't believe in a little blue man in the sky, but I did believe in the power of energy, and how God may not be a person, but there is an energy that it's a law of attraction. So it's like, what energy you put out, you get back. A belief is only a thought you keep thinking. So it's very easy. I've been in unfortunate circumstances where people have either accused me of something or just believed, completely, how do I put this, completely rewritten the truth, like reality of what happened, between like me and some friends that I've had. They've thought this idea of I did this, or I treated them this way, whatever, and it's like they've thought that so much that they believe it. And I feel like it's applicable in religious sense too. Is it's like, if you are quote unquote brainwashed to believe certain things, you think it enough times, you're gonna start believing it because it's the only thing on your mind. So yeah. I did want to address what Kevi did expand a little bit. She said, was raised Lutheran, but her beliefs don't exactly align with that anymore, so she doesn't know what she'd call her religious affiliation anymore, but she believes that she believes in the fact that there's no free will, which I think is interesting. I definitely like to touch on that a little bit about free will, because I have to admit, I don't think I've met somebody who doesn't think that they have free will, because my understanding has always been, that God gave man free will for a reason, so that man could make mistakes, and man could learn from mistakes. So I am interested, if she's still chilling out with us, which it seems like she is, to expand a little bit more. I honestly don't know a whole lot about the Lutheran belief either. I'll admit that I'm very ignorant about that, so I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to tell you either.
See, and I feel like that's also something that comes with, being raised in these faiths, where it's like, we don't talk about, at least in Jehovah's Witnesses, we do not talk about any faith, because we are, I feel like, the epitome, the root of I'm right, you're wrong. Because that's very much how I felt like I was raised. Is I would find myself as a young child, maybe 7, 8 years old, getting in religious arguments with my friends, because that's how I was trained. That's how I was raised, was deny this. If you ever hear somebody say this, deny it and tell them why they're wrong. That kind of thing, So obviously...
Yeah, and so like when I was raised was that every religion has a bit of truth in it. At least some truth in it. But only one church has all the truth, and that's
yes! Perfect way to put it. Perfect way to put it.
And so, like, I learned a little bit about other religions. I went to Catholic school, so I know a lot about Catholicism.
Sure.
More than, like, what the average person who isn't Catholic would know.
Yeah, like me.
But not enough to, like, say that I am,
a Catholic.
Fluent in...
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Yeah, so, like, but my knowledge of religions is, like, I'm obviously knowledgeable of mine to a extent. I know some Catholic. I've learned a little bit about other things here and there. I mean, I'm really fascinated by... I consider myself an agnostic. I'm kind of where my dad is, where I'm kind of agnostic, kind of atheist. But theology is very interesting to me. And
it is.
And I think that's because I went to a Catholic school while actively practicing Mormon, and so I was like, whoa, this is what?
Yeah. No, definitely get that.
But I know nothing about Lutheranism.
Yeah,
I probably should. I think my grandmother on my dad's side is Lutheran, but that's all I know of it. So.
See, my family is Jehovah's Witness as far as we can trace back, because obviously a big thing with Jehovah's Witnesses is that you must marry, and I feel like this is within a lot of faiths, is you must marry within the faith. And I oftentimes wonder why it is that they have that perception of things, why it is that they think that, because like you said, it's like I feel like, and this is another thing that I learned from the Hare Krishnas, is that everybody is worshiping the same God, they just call him different things. That's one thing that they really taught me, was that all gods, whatever you call it, whether it's Yahweh or Jehovah or Buddha or, Krishna, it doesn't matter. What you call him, he's still the same person. That's what I took away from that. But, Kevi also just said, God gave people the impression that they had free will so that they could make quote-unquote mistakes to learn from them, but see that God is directly causing that person to mess up, so it isn't a mistake at all. It's exactly what he wanted to happen, or at least that's how she understands it. So while she does believe in heaven, she doesn't believe in hell.
I can see that. So, that's very reminiscent of how I was taught, although we did kind of emphasize the idea of what we call free agency, which is free will.
Free will, yeah.
But the idea that it is a sort of it's all a trap. It's God playing 4D chess, man.
Yeah. See,
he planned for this shit.
Yeah, and I do see some, definitely some convincing points in what she said, is that, but there's also this part of me, hi, Helga, how are you? There's also this part of me that is very scientific. For example, my mother, and I did not find this out until literally 2 years ago, that my mother is a creationist. And, so she deliberately defies science. She deliberately defies science and says, God created man, and God created man separately. So, there were the dinosaurs, and there were the gorillas, and there were the alligators, and, what have you, but we were created specifically. He just snapped his fingers, and then there you go, humans. So, I remember we were on our way to Galveston to get on a cruise ship, and that's the best place to get caught up in a religious discussion debate, is in a fucking car ride, a long ass fucking road trip. And I remember looking at her and I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? How are you my mother? And I didn't know this. And I tried to educate her, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or at least it's going to take a lot of your energy that it's not worth to do so, and you're not guaranteed results. So it's like, I did present her. I was like, okay, so what about, all of the science? I was like, what about the science? What do you have to say for that? And, the only thing she could say was that I just don't believe in that. And that kind of brings me to my point of, I am a person who will allow anybody to believe what they want to believe, so long as they don't claim it as fact. Because that's where I have an issue, is when people claim that they know God. God has spoken to me. I know that God is real. I know this. I know that. Because me as a person, as somebody who does believe in a stronger, higher power, that's the best way to put it, is I believe in a higher power, but I don't claim to know what that higher power is. And I don't think that realistically I ever will figure that out. You know what I mean? I'll never know for sure. So that's my thing, is that I that's why I have these podcasts, is because I welcome everybody's upbringings and everybody's point of view on everything, as long as nobody is like, yes, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, because that's how I was raised, was I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
you need to tell people I'm right, you're wrong. But I was always, even as an 8-year-old, questioning, how the fuck do you know that you're right or wrong? I don't know if I'm right or wrong now. It's like in 2020, I have no fucking idea, and I can 100% own up to the fact that I don't know. But I also like the fact I like to open an accepting environment to, I don't know, you don't know, but I believe this and you believe that. That's cool. Neither of us are right and neither of us are wrong. Because I feel like when people do put themselves in that situation where they're telling other people, I'm right, you're wrong, it honestly puts themselves like they are God. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit of an exaggerated, analogy, but it's like, how can you know? Like, how can you know for certain? You've never been off this planet. There's so much of the universe left for us to discover. And if there is a God, then I would hope that he cares about everything. It's unrealistic to, claim that we are the only form of sentient life in this entire universe when there are hundreds of planets that have climates, or I don't think climate's the right word, but have environments that can be productive to life. We have no fucking idea what there is, and I admire so strongly that acknowledgement of ignorance. I don't really know if ignorance is the right word, but I feel like y'all probably kind of understand what I'm trying to say, is that we don't know. You can ask yourself all day, what's the meaning of life? No one's gonna pop out of the sky and give you an answer.
One of the things that I was taught being in the church was to say, if somebody gives you a question, that it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know.
Yes. I value that so much.
I did actually like learning at church was that they're like, you know what, it's perfectly fine if you don't have all the answers.
Yeah. And
I'm like, you know what, among the things, this was probably like a really healthy like little aspect that they had among the other shit. But like I did like that little bit where it was like, it's okay if you don't have all the answers. And it kind of going off of what you said about your mom being a creationist.
Yeah.
It's so like, at least what I was taught, the Bible wasn't like supposed to be in that aspect wasn't supposed to be taken absolutely literally, as 7 days to God is like billions of years, right?
Yeah.
Or like,
it's beyond, it's beyond time, like the scientists in our, in our society, they have a pretty damn good estimate of how old the universe is, but even then still, I feel like nobody can say to that extent what is and what isn't. Because y'all, there's only so much that science can do, and when it does actually delve into belief, because I feel like a lot of people are looking for answers. I understand that, because I was looking for answers. I don't think that I'm looking for answers so much even now. Like now, I don't feel like I'm looking for answers because I spent so long looking for answers, dabbling in Buddhism, in atheism, and that's why I don't call myself an atheist. That's why I call myself a Satanist. Again, not because I believe in Satan. I don't believe in a heaven or hell, but something that I thought was also interesting to bring up was the fact that when I was in the ICU, when I was unconscious for to put it, a better way to put it is, over the span of a month, I was conscious for a total of 6 hours. So 6 hours out of I don't know how many hours are in a month, but that's how long I was conscious. And I feel like this is important to touch on, because when I was unconscious, I thought I was in hell. I thought I had died. Like, I literally, like, it kind of does bring tears to my eyes talking about it, but I feel like it's very important to talk about, because they had to stop my heart, in order to operate on my heart and to transplant the valve, the mitral valve from a pig, which I have a little piggy in me, oink oink. Yeah, I can't eat bacon anymore or I'll be a cannibal. But But no, like, that was one thing that gave me even more perspective on life and the universe and God and hell and heaven as we know it, is having had that experience where I was literally in a living nightmare. I was in a living nightmare. I thought that my nurses were abusing me, when in reality they were just turning me over, because I was 135 pounds before I went into the hospital, and when I woke up I was 100 pounds. I was about 97 pounds, because muscle dystrophy and all of that goes so quick when you're not on your feet, like that shit goes so quick. So, I was unconscious for an entire month. And I remember what's so super weird, and this is why I like kind of roping religion into this, is because it gave me a very different insight that I couldn't have had unless I had literally been legally dead, declared dead. There's no way I could have had this outlook without that. So I find it very interesting, but I remember all of my hallucinations. I remember seeing my old ex-drag mom when she came to visit me in the hospital in full fucking drag, which even when I was, in this, that was one of the hours that I was conscious, but, they had me on fentanyl. So everything that I said was, everything that I saw and said was a hallucinatory nightmare version of that. Like I was on one of those air mattresses, so to try to prevent bed sores is what they're used for. And I felt like in that moment, like I said, I can remember very vividly that I was just sinking into this like lake of quicksand kind of thing, and I was freaking the fuck out. But I remember I was just kind of like sitting, and I was in a hospital bed. I could tell that much, but the entire room was dark. And I looked to my left of me, and I did see like like the trees where they hang all the IV bags and stuff, where they hang all of that. I looked to my left and I saw that, and my mind, I was like, okay. And it's funny because I was just telling one of my coworkers about this story today. I looked at it and I said, okay, I have been here for honestly, y'all, it felt like years. It felt like a century. I felt like I was like, okay, Inception time. If I kill myself in this dream, so it's not real, if I'll wake up, because that's how it works. I was like, okay, so if I, get that jump of, life force, I will wake up and everything will be okay. Because y'all have to understand that when I was admitted into the ICU, I had already lost a week of time. I didn't know. I had already lost 7 days because there was like 60-70% oxygen to my brain. So something like that. And so I had no idea where I was. And so in my quote-unquote dream, for lack of a better word, I remember pulling all of my cords out. And I can see it. It's so strange that I can see it in my brain. I pulled all of my IVs out, and I pulled everything out. And because my logic was, okay, this is, Inception, Brad Pitt, or whoever the fuck was in that. I was like, okay, no, what's his name? Hardy, Chris, I don't know, but y'all know who I'm talking about. He played Bane. I literally was under the impression, I was like, okay, if I flatline, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be in my bedroom again. This is just a really bad nightmare, whatever. Because when we're dreaming, we don't have any sense of reality. You know what I mean? Like, we're in a different universe. We're in a different reality. Leonardo DiCaprio, thank you, Omniparable. You are an American hero. But I had no, I didn't know what else to do. So I ripped out, in my quote unquote dream, I ripped out all of my IVs and all of my monitoring stuff, and I flatlined. And I remember in this dream, quote unquote, I was laying there and I was just staring at the ceiling, and all I could hear was the flatline. But I was still aware. I was like, okay, what the fuck? And then that's when I came to the realization. I was like, I'm in hell. I was like, this is where I am. I'm in hell. I can't die. I can't wake up. I don't know where I am. And that is such a heavy topic for me to discuss, but that's exactly the reason that I have this podcast, is to talk about shit like that, is because it's like so many things. And even that has made me think now. I'm like, I still don't know. even though I experienced that, I don't know if there's a hell, because I can't guarantee that's what I experienced, because they stopped my heart. What if I was in hell? Who fucking knows? I don't know. But, eventually I did wake up. So, whatever force that is. And, my mom is still heavily a Jehovah's Witness. Well, not heavily. I can't say heavily. She's a Jehovah's Witness, but she's distant from the faith. Like, she doesn't go to meetings anymore, but she does kind of the same as you, where she keeps up those appearances, or at least keeps her social media and her conversations with her parents, my grandparents, to a level that will be acceptable by them. You know what I mean? So it's like they don't feel, since my aunt has been disfellowshipped, and like I said earlier, my grandparents have completely disowned my aunt and don't talk to her anymore. She doesn't want that to happen to her. So the way that she kind of, from my perspective anyway, thinks about it and views it is, we deceive them so as not to hurt them, kind of thing. It's like she'll play the game, but they're old. They're gonna die soon. It doesn't, I understand that from her point, is it's like, it's not worth to traumatize. They're this old. They're not gonna change their ways. They're just not. So rather than put them through all of this stress and, hardship that they're gonna feel, if you or I were to come out to them and be like, I'm not a Mormon anymore, or I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, that would cause them a lot of negative energy. That would put a lot of negative energy on them, and they would feel some negative emotions from figuring that kind of information out. So it was it was kind of my mom's view is kind of a way to protect them while they're still alive. But no, I did think that was really interesting, especially since Jehovah's Witnesses believe in heaven. They believe, well, they don't call it heaven. We call it, again, I like how we say we still. They call it paradise. That's what it is a paradise. It's something for us to aspire to, and to rid ourselves of sin, so that we can eventually end up in this quote unquote perfect world. And I remember as a child, I would literally find myself in my bedroom staring at my Drake Bell poster. Y'all can come fight me. That was Drake Bell was my turning point. Snap, snap. To realizing that I was.
Hey, he's creamy.
Hey, he was cute. Okay, he was cute. He was good looking. But I remember I would ask my mom very frequently, so what happens when we die? When we go to paradise, like, what happens? And she said it's just a never-ending, it never ends. And me as a child, think about this, me as an, fucking 8-year-old child, I would be sitting in my bed looking at my ceiling, just capturing myself, oh, that's my kitty, capturing myself in this conundrum, this paradox of thought of, if this never ends, what happens? And I remember so distinctly as a child just staring at my ceiling and just thinking about infinity. I did the
same exact thing,
really?
Actually, as a child, because it's very similar to, it's an infinity. The life after death, in where we would go is in an infinite, it's for all eternity, and that was both a fascinating and terrifying concept.
Yeah, it is terrifying. That's exactly how I felt, was terrified. I didn't want that. My mom said that there would be an eternal paradise where we could go to when we died, as long as we didn't sin. And it's like, I didn't comprehend it, even as an 8-year-old to this point. So 8, 9, 10, 12 years later, God, wait, hold on, that's not right. Oh my God, I was 8 years old 12 years ago? That's weird. I don't want to think about that. But regardless, it's impossible. That's exactly what it was. And I remember being like 8 or 9 and pointing that out to my mom, like, how can there never be an end to something? Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe in heaven, but they don't believe in hell. And I have always been of the thought process of how can you believe in a good without I guess what's the word for colors when I'm a cosmetology student, I should know this. It's the wine for sure. Complementary, that's what I was looking for. A complement. How can you believe in a good, in an inherent good without a complementary inherent bad? You know what I mean? Like, if there's a good, surely there's a counterpart to that. And I am interested in hearing what we have about 6 viewers in here right now, what they have to contribute to, what y'all think about, an inherent good juxtaposition. That's a good word. I love that word.
That's a good vocab word.
That is a good vocab word. I love using that word when I'm in like a Facebook fight with somebody. I like to use big words. Juxtaposition. That is a good word, where it really is a duality of man, like you said, omniparable. It really is a duality of man in which you do 100% have to, or at least in my case, have to acknowledge if there is a good, then there has to be a contradicting bad. So it's like, I don't believe in hell, and it's weird. It really is strange being somebody who feels like they have experienced hell and who has, legally been, declared dead for a certain amount of time, because anybody who has heart surgery, there's no way that your heart can still be working while they operate on it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a whole process of, sedating it for as long as they can, I imagine, until they can fix what's wrong. So it's like, I did get a lot of insight into what that would feel like. And I feel like I need to maybe reevaluate some of my beliefs now, to be honest with you, because it's not that I necessarily believe in anything else that I didn't believe in before, but because again, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. So it's like, I don't think about too often the fact that I was in my own version of hell during that period of time, but it does creep up on me sometimes. I do have I've had night terrors as a child, and I'm surprised that I haven't had super bad night terrors now, preceding in this last year, preceding what I've been through. But more so, I think that experience has opened in me more of a curiosity in what we all have as human beings. We've been asking this question forever: what is the meaning of life? We'll never know, and we'll drive ourselves crazy trying to figure it out. I feel like the meaning of life is whatever the fuck we want it to be. It's whatever we as individuals choose is what we want, what will make us happy, which is also a heavy, a word that is also debated, highly amongst people, of what is happiness, but it does, to touch back on what Kevy said about there not being any free will. I think that's a very interesting point of view, and I can 100% understand why, Kevy, why you feel that way. Like 100%. If you have gone through that, you were diagnosed that when you were born, and so many people prayed for you, like 100% understandable why that is your belief system. And I love that. I love different belief systems. But one thing was, when I woke up, one thing that my mother chose to tell me was how many of her friends, people that I really didn't know, prayed for me, who prayed for me to recover, because I had a 1% chance. I had a 1% chance of the initial. I had to have 2 surgeries, so I had to have a splenectomy because my spleen was sequestering all of the platelets from my heart. So it was 8 pounds. I looked like a pregnant man. Not a fun time. So they had to remove that first, and because of my condition, because Baylor screwed me up so fucking royally, just screwed me over. Which I should have sued them, but I didn't. I'm an idiot. Could have gotten millions of dollars, but I'm not very materialistic anyway. But, it's like, that 1% chance, that's just defiable odds. It's like, how do you know, when the surgeon told me that after I woke up, I was like, what do you mean 1% chance? Like, that's unheard of, a 1% chance. And it's just like, I do really want to touch on what, you know, Kevy said earlier, is that's I cannot and I will never be the person to tell somebody, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. None of us know what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah.
None of us do. We can't. We're human beings. We don't know, but we can believe, and if that belief helps us to live our life in a healthier way, awesome. You know, especially mentally. It's like, if you can believe in something and it gives you inspiration to wake up and get out of bed every morning, that's amazing. It's like that is worth holding on to, as long as you're not hurting other people in the process.
Yeah.
But there's definitely that like Omniparable said, that juxtaposition of good versus bad is, even now, you know, I find myself asking myself, is there a hell? Because, you know, unless I was a hypocrite, I couldn't believe in hell if I didn't believe in heaven. You know, just if I was to contradict everything that I just talked about, you know, if there is a hell, then there's got to be a good place too, where people who. But one thing that I'm kind of interested into delving into is what defines sin. You know, like, what defines sin? Well, juxtaposed, again, crediting Omniparable for that nice little word, juxtaposed between biblical text, like what the Bible, or quote unquote, you know, translations of the Bible tell us is sin, versus what we as, you know, sentient living beings, with whether, you know, we believe we have free will or that everything is predetermined, we can still think for ourselves. You know, we still feel things, we still have ideas and thoughts and creations. So whether or not that's a result of what God wants or not, it's like, you know what I'm trying to say, we have that ability. And I see that there's some comments in here. Let's see. Helga says, I struggle with believing that people must endure heartache, pain, and suffering sometimes in our lives just to maybe get to a possible paradise. That's a really good point to bring up, for sure, because I feel like, you know, Spank, maybe you can touch more on this as well. As Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, they do believe, I feel like they determine your worthiness of, you know, being in heaven based on the materialistic version of things. Like, do you drink? Do you have premarital sex? It's all these things that I don't believe are really sins. So that's why I kind of wanted to get on that topic of, if sin is a real thing, like if we regard sin as something that is, whether it's taboo or what have you, tons of people, I will tell you this, like my dad is a prime example. He's the perfect Jehovah's Witness when you see him in the Kingdom Hall, so who's to say he is, you know, him is not also many of the other male, you know, cis-het white male elders in that congregation presents themselves as one way. You know, they have presented themselves as, oh, I am a Jehovah-fearing, God-fearing, you know, 100% great family man, whatever. But when we get home, he kicks off his shoes and he's a completely different person. You know, he's the one who will preach but not practice. So for those people especially, what defines sin to them? Do they not believe that they're going to hell because they stand up and preach about what you can't do in order to go to heaven? It's a lot. It's very heavy. Omniparable says, my mom and her prayer chains have been praying for me for 25 years. Hell is still in my head, only speculation. I do not even like the terms good and evil. They are in ways limiting concepts. Only humans have ever...
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very... we should definitely... I'll let you touch on that as well in a second. Only humans have ever chosen to define sin. Darkness is in us all. The shadow self we often like to hide, but in hiding, we actually seem to feed the beast and allow it to sink deeper into us. So, Spank, I'm going to hand it over to you to address what Omniparable said. Yeah.
Wine's getting spicy. Let's see if I can make a coherent statement here. So as far as good and evil, the definition of good and bad, or good and evil, that is something that is that is a very limiting term that puts everything in the black and white. Doesn't leave much room for nuance, does it?
No. No.
And so it's just, I don't know, it's such a weird thing for even me to think about today, and I think about this a lot, and maybe I'm just kind of spacing out right now because of the wine.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's, gosh.
See,
so it's strange because I think there are such things as good, but I feel like it's not strictly I don't know how to quite explain it. I believe there is a sort of morality that could exist within a society, but
yeah.
It's such a... I'm not a philosopher.
We try to be.
I'm not no Socrates. But it's just, I think there is such thing as a good, but I don't think it's such a black and white answer.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I don't know, I don't think there's such thing as a absolutely pure and just good without having just a little bit of a consequence to that, maybe.
Yeah.
It's whether it's big or small. I don't think it's I don't know, it's weird. I don't think everything is perfectly... I don't think anything will be, perfectly balanced, even in, good and bad.
Yeah. I feel like, Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're totally good.
I was wondering if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I also wanted to touch on what Alice is saying here in the chat about hell still being in their head, and that mental illness is what they liken to hell. I think that's a really... I was actually typing that out, but I guess I'll erase it now since I'm talking. Excuse me. I can relate 100% to relating mental illness to hell in a degree. Maybe not in the same degree that you can, but to draw on what experience I have, as being diagnosed bipolar, ADHD, fucking GAD, which is not fun. A cacophony of those things is very hell-like, but it does feel like you are kind of cursed, you find yourself asking all the time, why, why am I like this? This must be a sort of hell in my head kind of thing. And so that is 100% valid, and I definitely appreciate that outlook on it too, is that I feel like heaven and hell are subject to the people who are reviewing those, the people who are relating to their experiences, whether, from what they've learned, what we've all learned throughout our childhood and our adolescence and young adulthood as being privy, aware of hell and heaven. From what we learn, it definitely does affect us in that it's when we feel certain things and they fit the description of hell or heaven, say we're in love, it feels like I'm in heaven, everything is perfect in my life, or I'm really fucked up, I'm dealing with all this stuff, and it's it's, and just like Alice just said, it's the only hell that is tangible to them. Any other version they can't know. And that's exactly what I was saying earlier that I really appreciate, is when people acknowledge their ignorance. And ignorance is not at all a bad thing to admit. I will admit ignorance on tons of topics. Like, I had an instructor once at my cosmetology institute who didn't know anything about trans people, and when I tried to educate him, I would say, it's okay, you're ignorant, it's okay, let me educate you. And he would get so bent out of shape that he would be like, I'm not ignorant. And I'm like,
you're wrong.
I was like, you are ignorant though. Yeah, it's like, you are ignorant, but that's not a bad thing. It's like, it's only a bad thing if you're willingly ignorant and you refuse to, accept other people's education. Yeah. But, diverting from the topic a little bit, it is our experiences ultimately that do contribute to what we believe. And I think that's also a pretty good segue to kind of address, I guess, our final topic in the discussion, which would be, how do we feel like, how we've been raised and everything that we've experienced have impacted us as artists. Like, I guess I'll start by saying, someone who was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, who doesn't, they didn't believe in the devil. The devil wasn't real, but God was. And I was like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. And that was something that stuck with me through my childhood, and that I would ponder a lot of the times, is how can God be real, but Satan can't? You know what I mean? Like, how, and that gets us back, to what we were just talking about an inherent goodness versus badness, which I think you definitely addressed that very well, where it's like, I don't feel like people are inherently good or inherently bad. I don't think people are born evil. I think that people are exposed to, I guess, quote unquote, evil elements in our world, and they succumb to them, and that becomes a part of them. In terms of, like Alice mentioned earlier, mental illness and, other traumas that can change us and sculpt us. And I wanted to mention how, if anybody looks back at my Instagram profile at the drag that I used to do 2 years ago, it is very, very different than the drag I do now. And I do, again, want to address this to Alice as well. Is that changed me. The experience that I had, my experience and my likening to what I would consider hell, changed me as a person and as a performer and as an artist, because I chose to express that darkness that I felt. Everything that I do in my drag is literally comes from my traumas and hell. Like that, quote unquote, when I say hell, I mean the hell that I experienced. The one thing, just as Alice said, they can attribute to their mental illnesses, I attribute to that month of unconsciousness. So it's like that changed me as a person, and that impacted me so heavily as an artist and a performer and a drag person, is that I found that by being more dark and sinister in my drag is the best way that I can, I don't want to necessarily say positive, but in a healthy way, I use drag as an outlet to express that trauma, because as like I've said, I was in hell. Like, that's my experience. That's what I can attribute it to. That's the closest experience to hell that I've had. So that's why I'm like the demon, like the demon of Deep Ellum, like just this spooky demon-y character, especially because of my last number, the Jekyll and Hyde one, where he's like, everybody I know has got a demon inside, like that thing, like that number. I was literally crying when I recorded that number out of drag, because I did it half in, half out of drag, and I was literally put so much of my energy into that recording that I was actually crying during some of the bits, because it was like that was just my expression. That was me. That was hell for me. That's how I positively, or at least, like I said, I don't think positive is the best adjective to use. I feel like a better word would be I don't know what a better word would be. I've had too much wine, but but a more accurate terminology would be in a healthy way expressing that, wherein I'm not lashing out at people. I'm not negatively affecting my partner by putting that trauma on them. I'm not making my friends hurt. I'm expressing that in an artistic way that I leave on the stage.
Yes.
For
I can understand that 100%. A lot of my drag. When I went into drag, my drag's very different now than what it was when I started.
Yeah.
I started with very basic stuff. I was doing a lot of impersonation rather than
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Say that. You broke up a little bit.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Say that again.
Oh yeah, I was saying when I started out drag, I was doing a lot more male impersonation than figuring out a character, which is fine when you start if that's your drag, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think I was looking for a character.
Yeah.
Right.
Same.
To really pick up, and I really liked this idea of nostalgia, but looked at from a dark perspective, I often also kind of attributed that to my religion, because there's a lot of good memories that I have from it, but at the same time there's a lot of shit that when I look at it from in hindsight, I'm oh wow, that's fucked up.
Hindsight's 20/20, bitch.
So a lot of that element I kind of put in, and the last video I did, the one where I did Moonshine by Caravan Palace, I did it as a sort of cinematic dream. I really wanted to reflect on I did a video basically where I was going to sleep, and this was actually based on a real dream that I had, where I went to my childhood church, which was out in the middle of nowhere. I kept running away, but all I did was end up at the same place, and I think that was my interpretation of hell. Was a never-ending maze. Because, like I said, a lot of people that were more rebellious that I went to church with just ended up going back to the church. And I was afraid that I was just going to end up back where I began, because I'm so afraid. Because because this really got to me. And so using drag to kind of portray that, and it's often very hard to talk about this, because I'm going to be honest, I don't have, and this isn't to discredit people who were in the LDS church and have had really bad experience. I haven't had as bad of an experience as others have, and so I don't have a whole lot of maliciousness to the church as others may have. And so when I address the church in my drag, a lot of people interpret it as, fuck the church, which, honestly, in concept, church, but, that's not where I'm going. That's not really... That's
more where I'm going.
That's not to say that people can't do that, but, with a lot of my art, it's not from a place of me being really... I don't know how to quite explain
nasty.
You're
not trying to be nasty.
As much as fearful feelings, and really trying to work it through. And a lot of people interpret it as and I feel like that's also why, a small little interjection here, I feel like that's also why I have a hard time actually enjoying the Book of Mormon musical. And that's a separate issue on its own, and I won't get into that. But it's hard because I want to try to convey my feelings so that others can understand where I'm coming from. But often it still gets lost in the interpretation of it all, right?
Yes.
So, But I tried to leave my video, the one that I made, the one I was talking about, up to interpretation, because I feel like that's a lot more fun for audiences.
Yeah, no, definitely.
To have a take on it.
Definitely, and I definitely relate to that as well, is that a lot of my darker numbers, because I've been in an abusive relationship, I've, experienced emotional and physical abuse, and it's like those things it's not necessarily, I don't feel the need to drop the names of those people, call them out, put their pictures on. It's like that's not the point of my drag. The point of my drag is to express my trauma in a way that will not negatively affect the viewers, whoever, and leave it open to interpretation, because I thrive knowing that, maybe in the 2 years I've been doing drag, and I guess since COVID, it's been going on since for like 6 months now. Shit. Feels like it.
Really?
Well, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, 6 months, 7 months, just about there. So I guess doing drag. Oh my god! My cat just totally knocked over an entire bucket of thumbtacks onto me, and that scared the shit out of me. Holy crap. Oh my god. Wow, Kiki. That was a bitch move. But, no, to go back to that was, I like to leave my drag open to interpretation, because twice, I can count the times, twice since I have started drag 2 years ago, is, because I have had two people, only two, twice, come up to me and pull me aside after my performance, back when I'm Charlie again. I'm not Maxwell anymore. I am, on stage, I'm Maxwell. But when you see me off stage, I'm just Charlie, but in Maxwell makeup. You know what I mean? So, and we did touch on that in a previous podcast, is the importance of the last episode, the importance of, differentiating you as a person from drag, but as your persona. But, I've had two people come up to me and pull me aside and be like, that really touched me. That really helped me for XYZ reasons. It was one time I was at a club in Fort Worth, and I did a 3 Days Grace number to the song Animal, where he's like, I feel like an animal. And I had, animal written on me in blood down my chest, and somebody came up to me and they were like, I just cried when I saw your number. And it's like, it wasn't a sad number, it was an aggressive number, but the fact that somebody, to somebody who can't relate, it was an aggressive number. So for somebody to come up to me after that show in Fort Worth and to tell me that made me cry, I understand exactly how, or they at least tried to say that, I think the reason that you did this number is XYZ. And I confirmed that. I was like, you're exactly right. I was like, I'm very, very grateful that somebody, took away what I intended, but also that people in the audience probably interpreted in their own ways.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No.
When people interpret it in their own ways. In fact, that's the great thing about art, isn't it? That it is something that can be, if you have something that can be interpreted completely different than what you intended, that can often be a very beautiful thing.
As long as it positively impacts people, I am all for it. Like, hell fucking
yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't care if I'm doing a goddamn Muppets number. If you're touched by it and positively affected by it, that is literally the only thing I could ask for, is for, in my drag, for my negative energy to be expressed in a way that positively affects people. Because I don't want to take that negative energy out on the people I care about. Like, I don't want to take that out on my partner. I don't want to take that out on my mom. I don't want to take that out on my friends. I want people to be able to draw their own positive, healing, confirming experiences, because a lot of us, we can say we can have gone through shit, but we don't necessarily feel confirmed or represented in, like media, movies and TV shows, until we see a character or a person say or do or represent the same things, the same trauma we've been through. Suddenly we feel like, oh, I'm not alone. And that's a very powerful feeling for a lot of people.
And that's definitely why I do drag. I really like doing that sort of art that I can express myself, but also, impact others and have people, connect with people on an artistic level.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that I really love about doing it. And it's one of the reasons why I miss doing live performances, due to COVID. I couldn't, but
sure.
You know what, doing online shows, I can still do that. I like that I can still do that. And but it's really the reason why I've done theater before I've done drag. And that was another reason why I kept doing theater and stuff, because I could connect with audiences through experiences. It's just I really love this form of drag because I can do that while also doing my own script, right? I can write my own.
You can tell your own story. Yeah,
my own story. And really, drag is just a wonderful, wonderful art form for people who want to tell stories, for people who want to make people laugh, make people cry, make people, feel all sorts of emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, it's similar to theater, but I feel like with drag, you have a whole lot more control over what you want to do. I think that's the best part of it. That's the best part.
Yeah, and it's also important to note that, there are going to be people, just like there are people who are positively affected by your stuff, there are people who are going to not like you. They're going to not like what you do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all been in those situations where it's like one time I performed this really dark number where I ripped up the pages of a Bible and stuff in the Rose Room, S4, which is a very, I guess to put it diplomatically, uppity. I don't really know how else to describe it other than it is predominantly occupied. That is a stage that is predominantly occupied by glamorous queens. Your typical cishet white gay male queen, that stage. So it's like when I performed that number on that stage, I could tell the audience was not having it. They were not having it. They were not vibing. One guy in the audience said, "Yeah, fuck Jesus." I laughed. I was like, oh my god. I was like, okay, guy in the back. That's okay. But
and I feel that is I've had certain I've had events like that as well, like when I was performing at certain, usually small clubs. So, like, there are a lot of, I am not discrediting anyone's drag at all, first, let me just say that.
Yeah.
But, like, there were times where I felt a little bit out of my element, is that the right word? Where I felt a little out of place.
Sure.
Among the performers.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot in this area that I was performing in, a lot more dance and movement oriented performances that were beautiful and great and high energy, right?
Yes.
Meanwhile, I like to tell stories. I am a little more pay attention, slow paced.
Yeah.
And audiences, especially when they're in a more dance environment and they are drunk.
Yup.
And like dancey drunk, not like I'm gonna listen to something drunk.
Yeah, like I'm in your business drunk.
They do not pick up on subtleties of what you're trying to do. And so from that point, I've kind of learned how to pick my. When I can pick my venues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why I've actually transitioned into online spaces a lot better.
And yes, absolutely. I also do want to interrupt you for just a moment so that you can address Helga, because Helga just in a little comment up here said they're so thankful for digital drag and they would have never found me and you, I'm assuming, both of us, or so many other amazing artists who now shape their drag and what they do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Digital drag, it's saved a lot of people, I feel like. And I use saved as I pick the word saved very specifically. That's not just a word that I'm throwing around. I believe that digital drag, because keep in mind, I'm not going to go too into this, but keep in mind, y'all, that I didn't go to high school. I dropped out and I did nothing but role play on Tumblr for 4 years. I was very depressed as a 14-year-old, you know. So having that it's true, bitch. It's true. But
what's your role play, if you don't mind?
A lot of supernatural, Doctor Who, and Star Wars. Han Solo.
That's fine. It's fine. I thought you could say like one slur or something.
Oh, I think I did roleplay him at one point, to be honest. I think I did. I loved The Lorax. It was a good movie. But, digital drag has definitely, and yes, Alice, digital drag, saved is a perfect word. Saved because we are suddenly not allowed to be in our safe spaces anymore. We're suddenly confined to our homes, to where probably a lot of us found ourselves as depressed teenagers and, pre-adolescence, where we have finally, this has given us the opportunity to not only be creative, but to put our all into something that maybe, like I can't do I can't do 2 looks in one number on a stage, but I can do 2 looks in one number, or 3 looks if I want in one number, in a digital number.
Oh yeah, it has really changed the game,
Yeah.
And the other thing, similar to what I was saying, is it was hard to make audiences that were more high energy pay attention to my more story-driven or character-driven numbers. With digital drag, if you're the audience, you have to pay attention.
Yeah,
because
you have to. Yep,
it's on.
yeah, you're not just you don't have anything better to do, number one, as an audience member, you're willingly tuning into the cast. This isn't just you going out with friends to drink at a bar and then, coincidentally, there's a drag show here, which is...
yell out, yeah, queen!
Yeah, that's 50% of the demographic in my live physical show that I produce and host here in Dallas. That is a good portion, is just people who stumble into the bar because they like the bar, and then they discover, wow, I don't know what the fuck this is. And that's why I strive, I pride myself on making people in the audience uncomfortable, because I like to put people in those positions where they question themselves, where they're like... They're like, this guy's got like slime coming out of his mouth and pointy teeth. What the fuck? I will focus. I will hone in on that one person every single fucking time, because their energy is always so tangible. I can just feel it, and I look at them and I will lip sync just to them. I will forget that the rest of the audience is even there.
I love that feeling.
Yes. I love that.
That I always really enjoyed, and that I personally, not to toot my own horn here. Let me just
toot
lightly brag a bit. But something that I really enjoyed doing when I did live shows, and when I could have an audience that really paid attention, was how silent they would get. And not because they were bored, but because they were really they were getting everyone to shh, so that they could
pay attention
and really consume that. And there's something about that made me go, yes, and it's not necessarily because I want people to just pay attention to me. I mean, it is my number.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, I have something to say, and that people are taking the time to just listen to it.
Yeah.
It's a very
yeah.
confirming, validating experience.
It really is. No, it definitely is. So before we kind of like wrap our podcast up, there was another message up here from Omniparable and Alice. They said, Omniparable said, I have a conflict with the idea of free will. I think if God actually exists, that free will cannot inhabit the same space. It's part of why I, in a way, think that God may have existed, but is currently absent. That's really, really interesting. I
actually that idea, the idea that God created, like, gods, whatever, created something and then just stepped away.
Because they said, "Wow, this is fucked up." You had one job. Humanity, you had one job.
Of course, you know? Because you can't be omnipotent and good at the same time.
Yeah.
That's they're two conflicting ideas. You cannot be a good god and be omnipotent, and you can't be omnipotent and be a good god.
Oh my God, to add on to that, like, they just commented another thing that just kind of blew my brain up. They said, what if the Big Bang was God's death and we are the wave of the aftermath? Oh, bitch.
Sweet.
Damn.
Because that was mind-blowing.
I'm sitting here like shook because that is wow. That is the kind of interactive discussion I like, bitch, is you giving me something that I have not thought about before. That is a really cool, really awesome point of view, because that did not register. That is really cool. A good way of like kind of incorporating science and, you know, religion there. Wow, that's really cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you might want to end with, Spank?
Not in particular. I'm still a little bit tipsy, not
Hell
gonna
yeah.
lie.
I mean, same.
You know, overall, as far as religion goes, as long as it's not hurting anyone, you know,
oppressing anyone, or
oppressing anyone, you know, do it if it's really giving you that comfort in life, because who am I to take that away from you?
Yeah. We as human beings... oh, go ahead, babe. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I think that was my last point.
Well, I was going to end it with, we as human beings, we've been looking for an answer for a long time. You know, that's been the question, is what is the meaning of life? And I feel like the meaning of life is figuring it the fuck out and just making it what...
That's how religion started. Religion started as a way for...
They wanted an explanation.
To figure out itself.
Which is interesting, because it's like they wanted an explanation, but they also... Well, I say they, that's a very general kind of blanket statement, but a lot of individuals, you know, that I've encountered, you know, they say they want an explanation, but what they really want is a justification for the way, you know, that they already believe. They're not looking for somebody to tell them how it really is. They're looking for confirmation of what they believe. And I feel like that's probably a pretty good point to kind of end this podcast with. Thank you guys so much, everybody who tuned in. Y'all have been lovely, and this will be available on YouTube shortly tonight. I just click upload and it uploads, so but thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will be back with another guest. I haven't decided who that is yet, but I will be back with another guest on next Sunday. So unless there's anything else you have to say, Spank, I think I'm gonna call it a night on this.
No, I think I'm all good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Yes, y'all have a good night, too. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for, engaging in the discussion. Y'all have a great night, and make sure you tune in next Sunday at the same time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, or Mountain Time, or Daylight Time, whatever the fuck it's called now. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!